What's up, viewers and listeners? My name is Jay. I'm a registered nutritionist based here in Bristol, working with BJJ enthusiasts across the globe, helping jiu-jitsu practitioners perform to their best ability on the mat whilst making sure they are not doing anything stupid with their weight cuts. On today's episode, we had Lindsey Doyle, aka the female fight nutritionist. Lindsey is a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, a kickboxing champion who has helped fighters in the UFC, IBJJFF events, multiple boxing federations, and probably a few others which we didn't get to cover. Lindsey is a leading pioneer in the female anatomy for nutrition and weight cutting, and is pushing the boundaries to help her clientele. I'll be honest and say this podcast could have gone for longer, so don't be surprised to see a part 2 in Ireland in the future. In this podcast, we talked about weight cuts for young athletes, limiting research, different approaches to helping athletes, exercise and hormones, and a nutritionist's biggest fear, and much, much more. Thank you for tuning in, and of course, if you're not subscribed, please click that button and turn on post notifications for further content updates. Thank you for watching and listening. Let's get into episode 18. Oosh. Right, guys, welcome to episode 17. My name is Jay. I'm the host of the BJJ Nutrition Podcast and also run the BJJ Nutrition Consultancy, where we help all jiu-jitsu athletes perform their best on the mats whilst not doing anything silly with their weight cuts. Today, I am joined all the way over from good old Ireland. Do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, right, Lindsey.
Lindsey, there we go, Lindsey. And thanks also for joining us. You've also got your friend here, Amanda. And we're here to talk everything about nutrition, obviously, enough being a podcast. And I think, obviously, it's going to be good to... Oh, apparently.
Don't talk directly into it, it's too fucking loud.
Is this too loud still?
Yes, that's the ASMR podcast.
Can't resist it. We're here to talk all about, like I said, just experiences within that, and then how we want to try and improve and level up this nutrition game. I've been wanting to get you on the...
If you're going to sit there, that's fine.
All right, I'll lean back.
Yeah.
Lean back, smoke some crack. Sorry, just stuff comes out of my mouth sometimes.
It's technical, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all good. Been wanting to get you on the podcast for quite some time, generally because obviously we've spoken a few bits on Instagram and stuff like that, and I think, as we joked earlier, how much I explained some of the female anatomy to some of the viewers and listeners, they kind of look at me, you're a man, you can't be talking about this. And I'm like, well, yeah, I appreciate I've never had a period in my life, but at the same time, right, there's elements to the textbook which I can try and relate as best as I can, yeah. And I think to a lot of the viewers and listeners, obviously they may not be aware that when we go into nutritional dietetics, you can actually then start to specialize in certain areas. And so, appreciate I don't want to label you as the period woman and everything about menstrual cycle, but it puts into perspective that you're going to have a lot more awareness than I do, for example, obviously, when it comes to that. But anyway, thanks for coming on, Lindsey, and thanks for coming, obviously, coming on, Amanda. Really appreciate it. Do you want to go over your sort of background and lineage so far, where this all came from? Or?
Okay, so where do we start? So from the martial arts perspective, I've been doing martial arts since I was 15. I started kickboxing, and I'd done that all through school, and then I was kind of doing the school thing, doing that. I was good at taking exams, so then I went on to study law, but was always sporty, and then kind of completed my law degree, all the while competing in kickboxing around the world, making weight for years and years, and then was like in my office job being like, actually, this isn't me, I'm not into it. Didn't hate it, but didn't love it, so then trained as an S&C coach. But while all of this was going on, I was self-experimenting on myself for making weight every other weekend for kickboxing comps. So I was researching that, so I kind of was building my own nutrition knowledge, but I went with the lifting route, and then I decided actually it's the nutrition is where it is, and the nutrition for fighters specifically, and then obviously for females specifically, because I've had a million weight cuts, like some awful ones and some really, really good ones. I've been like martial arts since I started kickboxing. I do kickboxing, I competed in boxing, I competed in jiu-jitsu, I competed in MMA, so I just love martial arts. I call BJJ now my retirement martial art, because I have 2 kids and I can't train as often as I'd like to for people to be kicking me in the face, so I'm just like, I can show up to jiu-jitsu having not been for a couple of weeks and not get hurt, you know. So jiu-jitsu is my retirement martial art.
Love it,
but
love it.
From the, I guess, education side, I have a Master's in Nutrition from the University of Chester. And yeah, my passion is female athletes getting what's theirs, so I like to educate them on performing really well, you know, which is making weight.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Go on, Amanda, we'll ask you then, what's your lineage, what's your background then? So you're a competitor, that's all right.
So I'm born in Switzerland. I started boxing at about 16. Then I continued for about 4 to 6 years, I think. Moved to Jerusalem for my studies. And then there I discovered jiu-jitsu. Discovered as well, like you, that I could fight without being punched in the face. Loved it. Continued, moved to London, continued there, met the love of my life, and then moved to Dublin. And that's where I've been for the past.
And met the second love of her life.
That's fair enough. That's cool. And I know obviously you've competed a few times as well, haven't you? Any particular memorable moments or matches or?
I mean, this year was pretty special. I won PANS, and that was just amazing. And it was amazing as well because when I won, I was like, oh, that's it. You know, like it was a bit underwhelming, but
Yeah.
I was just happy not about the win, but of all my progress, basically. And that's a moment I'll always remember. And nobody was there, just Sean and myself, my partner. And yeah, it was just really special for that.
That's cool. It's interesting you touched on that, kind of it being like a moment where you got it and a bit underwhelmed, as you said, because we can wrap our heads in things where it's like, oh my God, I'm going to achieve this status, and I'm going to do this. So again, sort of a big thing for us is when we sponsored Grapple Fest, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we're sponsoring this show. And you get there, it's like, cool, well, this doesn't really come with anything. It's nowhere different in comparison to PANS, don't get me wrong. But
You're right,
I mean?
Like, absolutely.
And it'll be like the first time that you got maybe a fighter on your books, and then like, I don't know, they were boxing on Matchroom or something like this, or something the equivalent of, and you get it's like, oh my God, this is amazing, I'm here, and you're just like, okay, cool, there's not really anything else that comes with this right now, it's just, it's all built up in your head type thing.
I always say, like, people just, do you curse on your pod? So people don't give a shit. Like, if you win something on Sunday, by Monday, nobody cares.
No one cares.
I was, like, when I started jiu-jitsu, actually, because I was so competitive in kickboxing, I learn under pressure. So I signed up for a competition, and Dara was like, you've been training 6 weeks? He's like, and I was like, yeah, no. He was like, I just don't want, you know, he was basically like, you're gonna lose. So are you gonna stop training jiu-jitsu then? And I was like, no, the opposite, Dara. And he's like, okay, I don't want you. And I was like, no, I've lost as many fights as I've won. I'm not here for my ego. I'm here to get better at a martial art. And he was like, oh, okay, I just don't want to lose you because you're definitely going to lose at the weekend. I was like, thanks. And I actually won my first fight.
Hey.
But then I got put asleep in my second fight.
Oh, God.
I was in a bow and arrow choke, and I just didn't even know what it was. And I was just like, I think I'm okay here. And then I was like talking to the ref.
I've had a few funny stories. So again, similar to you, my first jiu-jitsu competition, I got gassed up by my teammates. Obviously, being a bigger guy, it was like, oh yeah, you'd be fine, I'm gonna smash all these people. This is no problem, right? And I was like, yeah, did a bit of CrossFit beforehand. So I was like, I've got the athleticism. I'm not gonna be. It's just a big fat fuck type thing. It's just there, like being nice and slow. And yeah, obviously, I watched back at the footage. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what was I doing? First match got DQ'd. Where I got put in a triangle, and I came from an MMA club, and so the idea was like, yeah, put in a triangle, just pick him up and slam him on the floor, you'll be fine. And no word of a lie, be in the triangle, and it wasn't even a massive slam. Obviously, the way I describe it is like, oh, he's like basically power bombed him on the floor type thing. I picked him up like probably that far off the floor, and then like tilted him to the side and like, let him down, and the ref's like DQ. But as I'm doing it, I can remember like in my corner saying, posture up, posture up. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then he's like, no, put him back down. Like in slow motion, I'll put him back down. Like, what did you say? And like the ref's like, DQ. And I'm like, what happened there?
I was DQ'd in a white belt comfort, like you, watching the UFC and then entering jiu-jitsu. So I was like, it's a white belt, and I went for a knee bar, and like the girl rolled, so we were rolling. And then the ref like stood us up, and I was like, oh fuck, I didn't feel her tap. She must have tapped. And the ref just looks at me and is like this. And Austin, my husband's in the corner, just like, for fuck's sake. Like, and even now, like when I got my purple belt, he was like, it's a real achievement. But he's like, I'm still pretty sure you don't know the fucking rules. I keep cursing.
You can swear as much as you want. It's fine. It's no problem at all.
That's weird. All three of us in a white belt competition got DQ'd for slamming. I did as well. Because I got caught in an armbar, and I was like, I'm not going to tap to this. So I just squatted him up. And I had him on my knees, and the referee was like, don't slam him, mate. And I was like, I didn't know I could do that. So I put him slowly on the floor, and as I put him on the floor, Pedro was like, hide your arm. And I was like, okay. Hid my arm that was free, and then was like, this is weird, why am I hiding my arm? And he sat on the opposite corner to me, and I was like, oh shit. And then when I realised I got triangled, and I was like, okay.
Oh no.
Now, Pedro, do you know Pedro Bessa is by any chance?
No.
Or, no, he's like Brazilian, basically dominated the Southwest for jiu-jitsu and
Okay.
everything like that.
Wales.
But I
He's
imagine
got a
obviously
couple
him
of
just
clubs
hiding
over.
his arm, he would just look to him like, no.
He's got a club over in Ireland as well.
Oh, he does actually. Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, I'm not part of the club after I got booted out. But yeah, it's another story for another day. But yeah, obviously all funny stories at white belts, stuff like that is always the case.
If you have a funny white belt story, you're not doing it right, really.
No, exactly. I had a spat where I was determined to get gold for some time, and I would go to competitions and I'd always get second, and I'd be put to sleep every single time because I'm quite stubborn, and in my head, even though the logic's not there in the slightest bit, I'm like, oh, it's fine, like it's just a bow and arrow, I'll just make sure my hand's here to stop that, from that I can breathe, it's no problem. And then next thing you know, I'm being woken up by the rest, and it's like, yeah, you went out, and I'm like, oh, I didn't think I was winning from here, buddy, to be honest, so it's a fine thing. And then, yeah, obviously some people say, you do it as a blood choke, so it makes no difference if you can breathe or not, and I'm like,
Go out on your sword, it's the way to do
basically.
it.
And then, nap before tap, I think someone said to me, I think it was.
Love that.
And then, typically every time the person got gold, they would be given a blue belt on the podium. I'm like, you bastard, you've done it again. Like, I've lost to a blue belt, really, not a white belt. But yeah, those are always sort of white belt stories and stuff like that. But sorry, tangents with this. So, master's obviously in nutrition. So you did a law degree as well, which I was not aware of.
Yeah.
So when did obviously the kickboxing was happening, but was there kind of like a pinnacle moment where you're like, there, law degree, this isn't for me type thing, is it?
Yeah, I enjoyed studying it, to be honest, because I enjoy studying. I like doing stuff, and the education system is set up for the way my brain works, which is I could learn a book tonight, pass an exam on it tomorrow, but in 2 weeks know nothing about it. You know, I'm very good at retaining information for a short time and regurgitating it. So I went through my law degree, barely going to any lectures because I was always training for kickboxing. I always had a World Championships or a Europeans coming up. I would just go to some lectures, make some notes, but then I would just cram the night before, and then I was kind of going through life on autopilot, I guess, because my whole life was set up around when I could train kickboxing and when my next fight was. So I had a 9 to 5. I was doing my apprenticeship as a solicitor, but I could train in the morning and then I could train in the evening, so that was fine, 9 to 5, easy peasy. And then I qualified, I kept just doing exams and just going forward. And then I was just in an office one time just being like, I'm not into this. And actually what happened was I stopped competing in kickboxing because I had achieved everything I could, and I was finding it harder to get fights in Ireland, and that's why I started boxing so I could stay busy in the ring, because then I was going to World Championships, having had maybe 2 fights, and I'd be competing against girls I had fought 10 times that year. So I started taking boxing. Once I entered the taekwondo competition, I literally was eating feet for the day, but I just needed to be busy with they were just kicking the face off me. But I just needed to be busy so I could, I could have made money off of that.
So it would have been there, like, what does the female fight nutritionist suggest to do? I eat feet all day. That's what I do. That's the clickbait, you know. Oh, God.
But yeah, I guess when I stopped competing kickboxing and revolving my life around that, I started being a bit present in other things in my life, and I was like, do you know what, I'm actually not into this. And I was also in a long-term relationship that was also just grand, and then when I stopped competing, I was able to just be like, when I stopped cutting weight and started eating food, I was like, I don't like this job, this isn't the right relationship. So I kind of changed everything. But at that time I was doing strength and conditioning. I ran a kickboxing gym, and next door there was an S&C gym, and the owner of that had approached me because he was doing his masters and he needed to work with a high-level athlete.
Sure.
So he was like, can I do your S&C for 12 weeks? And I was like, absolutely.
No.
And I struck up a great relationship with him, and he was like, you know, you'd make a really good coach. And I was like, and I had been teaching kickboxing for years, and I was like, you know what, I actually love this shit, you're right, you know. And he actually, although was a personal trainer running a gym, had a functional medicine background, so he had a great nutrition knowledge, and he helped me then start to get my weight cuts right, and then he pointed me in the direction of where to study actual literature instead of me looking online at American wrestler stuff that's so bad.
Yes, I did have a choice, Weightcut a couple of weeks ago, to which the athlete said, should we be waterloading like this? I found this link, to which the link was WikiHow on how to water cut.
Oh no,
and I was just waterload, and I was like, 3 years of my degree. It's just it's like that meme you see with the guys with the fag outside on there going like, oh, would you love me if I was still on lamp type thing. And they're like, right, he's trying to compare me to WikiHow right now. Right, just keep calm. It's fine. No, it's not that link. No. That's incorrect. Don't worry. Just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. But sorry. Yeah. Carry on.
So that was it. That was all a big changing point there, and I just so then I started taking PT clients, and I was still working in the office, and then I kind of went part-time in the office and took on more clients, and then I stopped working in the office, and then I opened up my own gym with my husband and my kickboxing training partner Damien, and just then started nutrition study on top. I had done like sports performance certificates, like, you know, post-dip stuff, like 8-week courses and stuff like that. But I was like, and then, you know, you have the large imposter syndrome. I was like, my degree isn't even in sports. So I was like, I'm going to do a master's. But like, it was great because I'm a firm believer of there's nothing wasted in life. And the fact that I had a law degree got me into the master's because that was the level they needed. They were like, yeah, come on in with your law degree, no problem, even though it was entirely not relevant.
That's interesting.
And then even like, it was law with commerce that I'd done. So even for like running the business, leases, accounts, I have all that. So
Nice.
like, it's all been really great, you know. So yeah, then I went to the nutrition, and like I said, I've always been kind of organically. I was on the Irish kickboxing team for years, and then my female teammates would know that I was researching making weight and stuff, and they would be all starving themselves, and they'd see me doing like obscure things like water load, or I'd be like just running the bath, and they'd be like, what is going on? What is she doing? And so they'd start asking me, "Can you?"
Magic? What is going on? She's eating all this food. It's moving down.
And they'd be like drooling at the rice, and I'd be like, "And I'll have some rice." And they're like, "What is going on? She's having carbohydrates. She's having baths." So they all started asking me to help them, and then that's kind of how it went about. And then, I researched it and stuff, and then I done my thesis in my master's on BJJ athletes making weight around their menstrual cycle and whether it affects where the competition falls, and specifically because, you know, in jiu-jitsu you weigh in and step on the mat, so there's no room for manipulating your body mass, you know. So that really interests me, and basically what I found is there's no bloody studies. So there's my study.
Yeah, I was about to say, please send that to me after. I'm a great read of that type of thing, which would be really, really cool. But you're very much right. I think the issue, especially when it comes to weight manipulation, is trying to get volunteers to do it.
Yes,
right?
yes.
No one's gonna be like, oh, glad you do a weight cut.
Yeah,
This is fine, no problem. Like, I think. One, obviously, shout out to Jordan Southern, the fight dietitian with the UFC and stuff. Like,
of course.
The fact he got Dan Hooker to do a trial weight cut for, I think it was the 145 division. I was like, like, there's no one in his mind who's like, oh yeah, I'll
put my body through that.
I'll just put my body through it with no fight in mind either.
Yeah.
Just like, fair enough, you've got a cracking relationship there type thing to do it in the first place. But you're very much right. In terms of studies, it's very awkward, especially when you have interactions with people who challenge sort of nutritional questions, right? Certain topics, there's loads of information on, right? You get down more combat sports and nutrition and how to manipulate weight and stuff like this. You end up finding that you're getting very limited with the studies, and to the point where, I don't know, you then get, let's say, I don't know, bigger studies where it's like, I don't know, you get a study done which is funded by the meat industry, for example. So I had a bit of an Instagram spat with someone the other day, which is always joyous because I'm like, I'll keep playing this game, because they were going, we all need to eat fully plant-based, for example. And I said, right, okay, there's pros and cons to it. I agree the fact that we need more plant-based foods in our diet. Everyone doesn't eat enough fruit and veg. I get that completely, it's not a problem. Yeah, but all your studies are funded by the meat industry. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's play this game then. Okay, so what are we going to do about the B12 that needs to be pushed into these foods that you're eating because you're deficient in them? Oh yeah, but that's not processed. I'm like, it technically is because it needs to be fortified. Oh yeah, but it's in the grass and it's in everything. I'm like, you just chatting shit, right? To the point where he started swearing at me, and I'm like, right, well, I'm just going to block you now because you can't have a debate and be open about this, right? But the point being is that I've got a lot of studies to back it up. And the problem is that you get a question on, let's say, weight cutting procedures. It's like, I've got 2 studies. One's got like 10 people, the other one's got like 15. And it's not even for jiu-jitsu, it's for wrestlers. And you're like, okay.
And then for me, there might have been one woman in the study.
Yeah, it might be one woman in the study. And then it's like, it also came up as need more research type thing. And you're just like, that imposter syndrome can kick in pretty quickly because you're so heavily reliant on these studies to kind of say, right, let's do that. But out of interest in with your own thesis, did you get many participants for it?
I did, actually. It was amazing. And that's the thing I find with female, and it's what's been evident on my Instagram since I really started in January this year, kind of been present online, is women really support women, and they really want, they all are begging for this research to exist. They want it, they want the help. So I put out, I think for my, oh God, I have such PTSD from my master's thesis, but
don't worry.
for the margins to be believable, what do you call it? It begins with a C. Anyway, I needed 280 and I had 485 people fill it in.
That's
It was just
awesome.
like, my supervisor was like, oh, we're going to get this published. And we've now split it into 2 separate studies and it's been edited for publication at the minute, because lecturers have to get a certain amount of publications to stay relevant. So she was just like, yes. And she changed from my supervisor role to, okay, Lindsay, well, I'll edit that and get back to you. And I was like, you do edit that.
You do that.
But so it was amazing. I had so many people fill it, and so many people being like, I've completed your survey, please send me the results of this study.
Yeah.
You know, they're just begging for it. But so what I had to do is, I was looking at the menstrual cycle. So there's very little studies on combat athletes making weight. Now, since the 2018 it started, you have a few people, like, you have your Jordan Sullivan, and then there's guys called Slater and stuff in Australia, a great team there, and then you have John Connors in Ireland in the ISI, so he's doing some good stuff as well. But they're all still just looking at men, mostly MMA. But there's nothing on, say, female fighters, full stop, female fighters making weight, and then female fighters making weight and their menstrual cycle. So I had to look at basically all the elements of the menstrual cycle. So I was like, okay, so what's menstrual cycle complaints people have? Water retention, fluid retention. So I looked at all studies on fluid retention, not relevant to making weight, but I just looked at them to see what I could pull from them. I looked at all studies on appetite changes in your menstrual cycle. I looked at studies on energy in your menstrual cycle. I looked at studies in psychology in your menstrual cycle. And then I had to look through all of them with hormonal contraceptive in mind. And then I had to look at all
what type of hormonal
yeah, and then I had to go and pull all of the combat sport studies that we have.
Yeah.
And try and correlate, okay, well, this was done on 10 men in the UK at a jiu-jitsu comp, this was done in the 1960s with wrestlers that were mental, this was done on this, blah, 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 and try and just make it all make sense together. So I had like the literature review element of it, and then I had the research from I had 485 people, women, complete this survey, and this is what I found, basically.
No, that's really, really cool. Like I said, hat off to you, mate, purely for the fact that you've gone to that extent to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to say enough as it is. As the sport's growing, there is obviously a discrepancy of the amount of people getting involved with it. Obviously at our ages at the moment and stuff, it's good to hear obviously with some of the local competitions. I think it was the last Bristol Open, there was 53% boys and 47% girls and juniors. And so it's like, okay, we just need to keep nurturing that so that then this is the thing that you've got that pool there, but as time goes on we need to keep it going
100%.
because we can't deny the fact that it's not as if there's hundreds of thousands of female athletes who just aren't willing to compete type thing.
Yeah.
It's the fact that there is that imbalance, and if we look at the sports that we're talking about, there's obviously barriers to try and encourage women to get into these type of sports. And take both our wives, for example. I don't want my hair being pulled in jiu-jitsu, so I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, trust me, no one's there going, I'm going to grab your hair like a lapel. Like, it's the last thing ever. Like,
however, I will put in, having someone slide their hand through your beard long.
chin straps and beards do not go well together. Like, honestly, I think this was a lot longer, like a couple of weeks back, I think it was. And then we were doing chin strap drills. Yeah. And for a couple, and then all of a sudden it would just be like you're wedging the fingers, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like,
it's the Ezekiel, especially in gi, they're like that. They're like, ow. They're just rubbing, and you're like catching.
Then likewise, I like the idea of shoving my beard in their faces.
Can you imagine the beard rash they had from trying to grab moving on your beard?
Exactly.
But to touch on what you said there, one of the scary things that came out of my research was that the younger someone starts to compete, the more likely they are to engage in extreme weight cutting measures. So if we have teenage girls coming in, starting to compete, and you see it in judo a lot, because judo is it's a very well-funded sport, and they get girls into it young. And then when they generally come to jiu-jitsu, when they become 8 later, and they basically, when they see that maybe the Olympics isn't an option, they usually transfer, but they come in with such disordered eating patterns, disordered body image, disordered relationship with food, and so it's just, that was one thing that I was like, okay, we need to get in these kids. And then of course these teenage girls are also at the start of their menstrual cycle starting, so their period isn't even regular yet, and they have all this influx of hormones, and they're making weight. And then, because I know I won my first kickboxing nationals at 15, and I started competing, and when I was competing there was no junior, so I was just straight into the adult world. And then I had some success, so I got seeded. So then at like 22, I'm still trying to make the weight I was when I was 15, and I've started lifting, and I've you know, and
Yeah.
so I can see the trap. I can sort of like to support them around it and have the knowledge around it, and just even remove the stigma whereby like move up a bloody weight class. I mean, you've grown, move up, because
we've talked about it several times.
it's
It's like, again, I was super sad. I think it was one Friday evening after I finished work, my last phone call, and I was like, I don't know what came to my mind. Let's go out through the last competition on Smooth Com. Let's grab all the average weights, obviously, of the white belts, because it registers obviously the weight they weighed in at, minus the ultras. I was like, let's do an average of how much they all underweigh by. I was like, 1.7 kg. I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm like, stood back to myself, like, why did you just do that? Like, that's really fucking weird. But at the same time, I was like, if everyone on average is being 1.7 kg under, right, you then eat up a little bit, and we put about it, are you going to be fussed about £2 difference or like a kilo difference? No, you don't give a monkey's
No,
the slightest bit. You're just there like, all right, cool. We've talked about this in the last podcast with Ricky Bell, like it's the fact that you're in an open mat scenario.
Exactly.
I'll go and grab anyone, like I don't care, and it's like it's there. And don't get me wrong, I think we're all aware there's going to be a disparity between, I don't know, the 55 kg guy against the ultra heavy. Yes, there's going to be an element of difference to it. Like you could even say to the point, you had a blue belt, competitive blue belt, ultra heavy against a black belt who's like 55 kilograms. Yeah. You're potentially going to see the black belt tap, right? Not because of like issues with skill or anything like that. It's just a too big a person to sort of handle, right? But you're very much right in the sense that as this sport is growing, we've got to try and nip things in the bud sooner rather than later, because the other thing I don't think is being talked about as much, because of, again, talking from a very alpha world of what it is and being martial arts and everything, like being all nice and hard and stuff, is the relationship with food in general. And the thing is, you look at other sports, and so I'd say jiu-jitsu is kind of in its infancy in the world of social media at the moment, right? In comparison to other sports that have been at the prominent of it, like bodybuilding, fitness influencers, that type of thing, right? Where that's gone full spectrum. It's gone from bro science, chicken rocky rice, work hard, train hard, to then going, oh no, well, let's do something a bit different. Females then coming into the mix with different things. Now they're having problems. Females talking about their menstrual cycles a little bit more. Then it's kind of going, okay, well, what about what these bodybuilders doing after they competed? Then, their relationship with food's fucked now all of a sudden. And they're like, I've got these eating disorders. So I know obviously you did, were you with Sky the other week, I think it was? Or no, she's, I think her name's Sky Elizabeth.
Yeah, I know, I follow her, she's great.
She's gone through everything, which is really cool.
She competed in bodybuilding and stuff,
Exactly, and she does CrossFit and stuff like that, so shout out to Sky quickly. She's gone and seen everything. I'm like, cool, but it's another person. I'm like, great.
Totally, and she's amazing. And she really focuses on the relationship and the feeling and intuitive eating, you know, which is... but I often remind people is they base their, say, jiu-jitsu nutrition on the fitness industry, but the fitness industry is based on the bodybuilding industry, and it's not a performance. Like, don't get me wrong, I lived with a bodybuilder for years. I love the bones of him. I seen what he went through. I'd be cutting for fights, he'd be cutting for stage, and it's a discipline in itself. But they have to stand on stage and flex their muscles. They're not having 5 and 6 jiu-jitsu matches. So please stop. Like, remember that the fitness industry is based off bodybuilding. It's not performance nutrition.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I love actually about Lindsey, is that she's not just there for the athletes, she's there for their friends, for their partners, for the coaches. She's educating everyone. She's doing seminars in gyms, educating the coaches, male coaches, because this is super important as well. Most of the coaches are male, and they need to know all of this, you know, like...
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, we've highlighted this quite soon with the podcast that we've done, is that you all know this, right? Obviously running a gym, right? You are not just the S&C or the nutritionist.
Oh God, no.
You are HR. You are, I don't know, the politics,
the accountant.
The accountant. You're everything else about this. And unless you've got that experience prior to it, the expectation is that being sort of like head of the gym is that you should know everything, right? Dermatologist for any skin infection or anything like that. It's mad, to say the least. And because, again, as we know, jiu-jitsu is not well funded and stuff like that, depending on the school and what affiliation you have and what obviously is going to be there, is they have no support for it in the slightest bit, right? And as with anything, we get sucked into the world of jiu-jitsu because it's a great sport, we all love it. But the black belt at the top of it all of a sudden, or the professor, or whatever belt it may be, is viewed as they know everything. Yeah,
they're the accidental businessman mostly. They have the highest belt in the gym. They start running the gym, and now, especially like you said, you have teen classes, kids classes, and they've all these girls coming in. Like, I remember when I started boxing, it was in like a rural gym in Wexford in Ireland, and they hadn't had a girl there before, and I came in like obviously very experienced in kickboxing.
I got his image of like Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm like, we got a woman on the
Yeah,
ship. We can't be doing this right now.
But they were so open to me and lovely, and I still love the
that's
bones
great.
of them all. But there was 3 coaches, and they were like men in their 60s that had just been they're a huge part of the community boxing clubs in Ireland. But it was just so cute, because they'd be like getting us warming up, and they'd be like, all right lads, let's go. And then they'd be like, sorry Lindsay, all right lads and girls. And I was like, guys, I don't mind being referred to as lads in a group, like it's okay, you know.
I sometimes get paranoid when I say, guys, hey guys, how you all doing type thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be like just a male audience type thing.
Yeah,
It's just
no.
like, I
There you
don't.
go, it's 50% of our audience.
Bush.
No, I said like I have with our girl WhatsApp group, I'd be like, lads, you'll never guess what. Like in Ireland, lads means like
Everywhere.
hello,
Yeah.
you know.
I get it.
But yeah, but then you're expecting, like, again, to come back to the menstrual cycle element of it, you're expecting this male coach to, first of all, like if this is a man in his 30s, to be approaching a 15-year-old girl asking her about her periods is a bit hairy, you know. And then, but I run polls on my thing all the time, because like I believe it's in the hands of the girls to be more open about it. And there's a lot of girls that, like in my polls, they'd be saying they'd like more menstrual cycle education, they'd like their instructor, their gym to be more open about the menstrual cycle. And then, but they'll also tell me they still will hide their tampon if they're going to the toilet. They won't just carry. And I'm just like, you know, you need to be open. It needs to not be seen as an injury or a weakness. And there's this thing as well, as people don't want, like definitely in boxing and MMA, I don't know about jiu-jitsu, but they don't want their opponents to know they have their period, because it's like as if they have put a strap on their knee and stuff. So it just all just needs to be openly spoken about. There's just women in the space now. It is what it is. And 50% of the people competing are women, and they once a month will have a period, hopefully, if they haven't fucked it with their nutrition and it's gone missing.
Yeah.
But
which, again, like as you said there, it's one of these things which I can imagine obviously a lot from these instructors who may be in their 50s and 60s, not saying this is for everyone, who can barely have that conversation with their own daughter.
100%, or their wife even, you know.
Yeah, and then so obviously, it's like, oh, good old joke, isn't it? Obviously that picture, oh, hey babe, do you want lemon and lime today, or is it orange type thing? And so like a tampon or something like that. Sorry, I get so stuff. But it's the same thing, is that it needs to be openly talked about, and it's basically, it's normal.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's the same thing of like, I don't know, muscle soreness the next day after the gym. It's just
100%,
normal.
yeah.
It needs to be viewed like that. And I think the problem being is that I think potentially with some of the older instructors who, I'm going to just call it old school view, right, is if they do submit to some degree that they don't know something, their stock goes down all of a sudden. Like, oh, you don't know about this. And it's like, oh, yeah, we don't talk about that type of thing. And it's like,
that's personal.
Actually, I'd rather view you kind of be a bit like accepting of this. And I think obviously we probably both agree on this. If you come across someone who says, I know absolutely everything on that subject, like massive red flag. Like, 100%. Should never be the case. Like, I always use the same argument every time, is that when the keto diet came around, right, none of us knew it was going to help with epileptic children and patients, right, to help reduce their seizures and stuff like this. But since then, right, we've obviously found the dieting structure, okay, suits some people. Is it for sports performance? Probably not at all. Helps with the epilepsy type of thing. And when new diets come around, I can't just be dismissive of it until we have
some data to
go for it. And so it's like carnivore diet's quite popular at the moment, type of thing. And it's like, I can't dismiss it. If I look at the basics of it, right, there's no carbohydrates in there, or very minimal to say the least, right? Yeah. I don't see it as sports performance in the slightest bit type thing. And so, however, if it does come out and we find a new process that, I don't know, it supersedes the keto process of gluconeogenesis, and like all of a sudden the carnivore is more superior than that, I might go, okay, well, this is interesting. Let's have a look at it. And so again, you've got to be accepting of it. And I think this is where, like I said, the instructors just need that much more support, that much more guidance, but also they have to be willing to accept that support as well.
And then there's a bigger picture element people lose. Like, I have one of my best friends is a nutritional therapist, and it's very, very much therapeutic nutrition for like chronic illness and stuff. And her and I often butt heads on a few things, but it's like, because performance nutrition and, let's say, longevity nutrition maybe sometimes don't match. But also you can very much, like, you know, it's the same with supplements. Someone is like, I'm going to take this one enzyme and it's going to solve all my problems, and they're not looking at all of the other issues going on in their body. And it's the same way with like carnivore. Of course it helps with like inflammation and stuff like that, but are you going to be able to explode? Are your muscles going to be working? Probably not. you know.
It's interesting you said on that. So we had one guy who, again, Rich, won't mind me saying this the slightest bit. He's about 95 to 100 kilograms, very lean, goes to the gym, muscular guy type thing. Didn't want to do bodybuilding, so didn't think he had enough to it, but could step on stage pretty comfortably.
Right, okay, yeah.
Black belt in jiu-jitsu, loves the gi.
It's very sensitive.
Oh, sorry.
Go on.
Sorry, guys. Loves the gi. He's following the carnivore diet because he keeps on getting issues with his knees and a few other medical issues, right? He started the carnivore diet, feels like he's had better results with his knees, and he's obviously lost weight. And I don't think I've actually had a chance to say the same to this, so Rich, if you're listening, listen up clearly. His weight's dropped by 6 to 7 pounds. And it then dawned on me the other day, I was like, if that's 6 to 7 pounds is off your mass, when you look at the pressure of knees, 1 pound of mass reduction is 4 pounds of pressure off your knees and 8 pounds of pressure off your hips.
Yeah.
So has the inflammation reduced because of the carnivore diet, or has your overall mass reduced the pressure off your hips and knees all of a
2
sudden?
pounds off your knees.
Because you've now taken that pressure off. Now, I've got no way of clarifying that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
No one's going to be able to do blood work and that type of stuff to be able to figure that out type thing. And if the accuracy of that information is going to come up or not is another thing. So it's then saying, okay, well, where's that benefit come from? But
Yeah, and it's a chicken and egg situation, and
Yeah.
you're stuck with it. But with things like carnivore or keto, I find sometimes they're a good elimination diet to get someone just to clean up their stuff for a few weeks. But then, of course, then reintroduce something like some carbohydrates around training, and then it'll be like rocket fuel. And then they're like, oh shit, I do. And then you're you have them back in, you know.
Yeah.
And then obviously your microbiome needs different coloured foods and stuff. So it's a big area, and it's a trial and error. But I think the power always comes in with the person knowing their own data, knowing their own body, and being honest with themselves as well. Like, I feel like a lot of people come and they want some big complex protocol, and I'm like, actually, if you hit the right level of calories, timed your carbohydrates right, add enough fat to nurture your hormones,
get some fibre in there probably.
went to bed,
Yeah.
got off TikTok and went to sleep, and drank enough water, you're probably going to be in the right weight class without anything. But until you're trying that, in my view, you don't deserve a very complex hour by hour nutrition program.
I'm sure you get this. I'm sure with inquiries, again, I say this to a lot of people, right? Don't come to me for heel hook nutrition.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We are not going to be touching anything like that until I see you responding to you passing the guard. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah,
best
yeah,
way I
the
describe
basics,
it, right?
yeah.
If you can't adhere to the basics, the basics are your foundations with this, and people think they have them nailed, right? I'm sure you've come across individuals where you even have that perception of like, wow, top athlete, you probably have everything pristine, and you give them some basics to do, and they can barely do it for 3 days.
Yeah.
And you're like, hold on a second, like. And obviously, I think the scientific mind probably kicks in and goes like, how far could we push this type of thing? How much more potential can we get out of them? But you then just see their adherence is just horrific all of a sudden. You just think, okay, and to some degree that's when, even though I too butt heads with nutritional therapists, as I'm sure you're aware, obviously the name's not protected, so there's a bit of a frustration, to say the least, that anyone can call themselves a nutritionist. I'll call you a nutritionist for today if you like. Tom, no, not you, I'm not allowing you in.
Yeah, I'm no good at nutrition, man. I literally follow the bro diet of chicken broccoli rice.
I know you love it.
Because I tried everything else, and that's the only thing I actually generally don't feel unwell or underfueled or anything with.
Each
but
their
like
own.
we said before, different people.
Yeah.
Everything works for different people.
But it's one of these things where then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, what's the problem with the adherence? And it's like, oh, okay, cool. When you start getting into more nutritional therapy of like, what's life structure like? Oh, you've got an issue with your job at the moment. You hate your job. And it's like how we don't advertise life coaching in the slightest bit.
No.
But it gets involved with it to some
100%,
degree.
yeah.
And it's just like, oh, okay, you hate your job, you're miserable, you come back to a partner who you hate as well for some odd reason, or is just not giving you any attention.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fuck it, I'm just going to go out and get pissed up on the weekend because of it type
Yeah.
of thing. Or go and eat a load of food. And it's
Or just
like,
the emotional eater, you know, which is a huge thing.
Exactly. And then that's when it's like, okay, I find that people who kind of put themselves in that camp of, I only deal with nutritional therapy, or therapists, and that's that type of sense, like, well, your role needs to be a bit more expansive. You see what I mean? It needs to be a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, it encompasses. Yeah, well, like when I'm talking to people on Instagram and stuff, like people expect that I'm doing consultations with clients and we're talking vegetables, fibre, protein. Generally, we're talking, why do you feel bad when you eat more carbohydrates? Why are you judging yourself for being hungry? Why? And trying to unpack all that, and like, what's the problem with you fueling yourself, and where does that stem from, and how can we like, I am always just trying to unpack the treat or good and bad foods. I'm like, there's nutrient dense foods and there's less nutrient dense foods, and if you choose a meal that's less nutrient dense, just make the next meal a bit more nutrient dense. And I have this thing with my clients where I'm like, please just don't press what I call the fuck it button, where they're like, oh, look, I was out, Lindsay, I couldn't get a salad, so I got myself a burger and 3 pints of lager or whatever. And so then obviously the weekend was done. So I just started eating all weekend. And I'm like, please, like, it's just a factual event in your life. You had a meal. There's no emotions. You're not
that's it.
And like, you're no less of a good person because you chose pizza over salad. No. You just wanted pizza, have the pizza, move on with your life, and try not to attach emotion to it, you know. So it's a lot of that work, and then it's like, and by the way, would you just eat more protein tomorrow? You know,
honestly, it's about coaching the individual.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
However, I have reservations about calling things in the online coaching more like check-ins and stuff like that. Because I don't, no offense to them, there is a fucking shit ton of online coaches, if you want to call them, who are awful at their job, right? And I'm going to categorically say that there's shitbags, a lot of them. And then there's other people out there who want to do well, right, and actually really care for it. And obviously then we've got some nutritionists and we've got some dietitians type of thing. And so I don't want to associate myself with any of those type of people in the slightest bit and say like, oh, we do consultations each and every week. Right? We're sitting down, we're not doing a check-in type of thing. And the idea being is that we are going to try and get to the crux of this issue. And if it's a relationship with food type of thing, that is a proper job in itself to try and manage it. And it's the whole idea that some clients I've worked with before who've got awful relationships with certain food groups, typically chocolate, I'll be honest. Right? I say to you, right, nice and simple. You are going to eat a chocolate bar every single day. I'm like, but why? Like, because we're going to normalise this. You're going to get bored of chocolate, oddly enough, and you're never going to want to touch it again, type thing. And then, like, honestly, it'll be the text every morning or message on WhatsApp, like, what chocolate bar have you gone for today, type thing. And they're like, oh, this is mental. And then, oddly enough, 3-4 weeks later, like, haven't binged on chocolate now for like the last 3-4 weeks. And they're like, and I'm like, this is just simply because we've got you to eat chocolate every single day. Now, to the sports performance person who's there going, I'm going to go and topple Gordon type thing, I got to eat clean and all this type of stuff. I'm like, and they'll look at it and go, oh, it's inferior. Why are you dealing with this? I'm like, how about we think about post-competition with yourself here?
100%.
What are you going to be like then? Is it going to be like chicken, broccoli and rice for the rest of your life? Probably not. No. Like, it's terrific. A quick word about one of our sponsors, Grapplers Soap. The team wanted to find, right, the best possible defense against skin infections, which normally we get from each other or off the mat. This, in turn, led Dan and the team into researching more about soaps and essential oils, which turns out has been used for thousands of years, actually, as a natural defense against infection during the plague. Slightly twisted story here, but grave robbers in England knew of the power of essential oils and smothered themselves in it before exhuming and stealing corpses. Useless fact of the day for you there. But Dan and the team had tried several soaps before, but none of them just simply wowed them. So he started to make his own. Months more research, trial and error led to finally this golden nugget, Grapplers Soap, which you'll be pleased to know the recipe is CPR registered and approved by pharmacists. The use of a specific method to lock in the amazing natural smell, no cheap fragrances used here, which means the soap and use smell great and stand the best chance of staying healthy. Although the soap was developed for grapplers alike, it is now widely being used by non-grapplers, and Dan is always delighted to hear from customers about how it's cleared up dry and itchy skin, or relieved eczema, or just simply made you feel awesome. The smell alone has been a massive hit with men and women alike. So enough waffle for now. Go and get yourself some now at www.mrbassets.com, or go check out their Instagram page for some very funny memes at Grapplers Soap. Thank you, guys.
And the big thing is it's the short-term view, and it's hard when you're working with high-level competitors because they just have the next fight. But I'm saying I think it applies to males as well, but certainly women in jiu-jitsu, if you want to be able to make a living out of this, you need to be able to take fights at short notice. You can't be ballooning up after each fight. You can't be doing that binge restrict. You need to eat like a professional athlete, like it's your job. Obviously, you're not going to be on fight weight full time, but and the harder they restrict in camp, the harder they binge afterwards. And and I try to say to them, like, every time you do a really bad weight cut, you're shortening your competitive career 100%, because you're going to, basically, you've starved yourself maybe for 8 odd weeks, so you've lost some muscle mass, but you're going to put that weight back on afterwards, but it's not muscle you're putting back on, it's fat. And then, so the next time, say we try to even dehydrate you, there's not enough muscle mass there that we had last camp, and that's why it's harder to sweat this time. And nothing happens alone in bodies, you know.
No. It's interesting, again, like when you try and look at longevity of different things, and I think as time has progressed, especially in the mixed martial arts world and in jiu-jitsu and in other weight making events, is I think the secret of making the weight cut, right, is kind of we've gone past that era now. People are more aware of it, talking about it.
Yeah.
And now I think the next level is how well you perform outside of camp, basically, and how you manage it. Now, obviously, we've notoriously seen Paddy Bimlet blow up to the size of fucking God knows.
You know, they've done a study on him. It's a published study. I can't remember who the author was, but he put on 10 kilos in about. He lost 10, 12 kilos in 3 days, but then put on 15 in 2 days after.
I think they were saying his livers, his kidneys were going to
Yeah, all of his markers were shite.
He's not the only person, though, is he? Because
Darren Till, there was a video of him being basically like
wasn't he vomiting outside the sauna, like the portable sauna, and they were filming it like it was
normal, and then on top of it as well, he was on the treadmill going, I can't fucking see.
Yeah.
Like his vision.
And he had a plastic suit on,
and he was like, just chuck me back in. And again, this is the problem with this. Again, there's two ways of talking about this, but the alpha mindset of just, you need to grind harder, bro. Like, don't get me wrong, there's elements of alpha that I like the discipline, I like the structure, I'm all for it type of thing. But there's elements where it's like, you are just being an absolute fucking nose right now. But, and I'm sure this would be an interesting question for you, right? If you had a client who had to make weight and was going to be paying you obviously a substantial amount of money because their purse was, let's say, 5 million, let's say like this, I've got to shift 15 kilos in 2 days. Otherwise, you're not getting paid, or I'm not getting paid. It really puts you in like a very awkward circumstance. Now, you can either straight away be like, "Foul, no, I'm not doing this. But at the same time, there's an element of like, if it was life-changing money, and you think, okay, well, we're going past the recommended markers.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about the life-changing money element of it, because I definitely have been approached by like the likes of John Kavanagh in the past and been like, such and such is over by, like, won't name the fighter, won't name the amount, but I've just been like,
Connor.
No, thanks. No, it wasn't Connor, but I'm just like, no, absolutely not. And like, of course, I could get you on weight. Will you perform? 100% not. But also, will you survive the weight cut, mate? You know, and also, why? Why have you, like, my question, and obviously the week before a fight is not the time to go into this but with them, but why the hell are you so far over this close to the fight? What has gone wrong in your camp? But now, if you're telling me if it would like buy my family a house, I'd have to depend on if I like the person, probably not. But if they were just some other random, I don't know. It's awkward. Like but the thing with weight cutting is, the science on it is it's getting there, I guess. But it's not going to stop. And people are like, we have to. So like, you have one championship or like the judo where they do check weighs all the time and stuff. But what's happening, and same with the UFC on their, you know, when you check in a fight week, you have to be within 10% of your weight. But so people are now just doing 2 weight cuts, or like in
pro boxing, didn't they? They wanted a pre-weight check-in, and it basically transpired that they were then just doing another weight cut.
100%, and
then redo it again 2 weeks later.
And so, and in one championships, they weigh you an hour before you get in the ring. In some of the pro boxing organisations, you do a day before weigh-in, but you're not allowed to be more than 20 pounds heavier the next day. Before you get in the ring, they weigh you or whatever. But then people are just doing double weight cuts, which is really bad. And then they have, like, so in wrestling and college wrestling in the States, because obviously that's huge and it's very well funded, so a lot of the studies are based on that. But they started doing what they called it, like, because they lost a few wrestlers in the 60s. Kids died doing weight cuts. Two kids, so they started implementing these
safety procedures, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so they have a like minimum season weight or something. So they weigh all the kids at the start of the season, and they're like, right, so say if you weigh at 60, they're like, the lightest you're allowed to compete at this season is 55. But then the kids are also doing weight cuts before that weigh-in. So then they start doing the urine-specific gravity tests to check are they dehydrated when they're doing that. So they test their urine. But now the science has shown that the urine-specific gravity tests aren't as reliable. They're very, very person-specific. So for my marker of dehydration and yours is very different. So they have to have a bog standard fully hydrated USG test on you, and then they can base it, whereas they were trying to do ranges, but the ranges aren't accurate. And then even with the USG tests, the discrepancy between men and women is huge because female sex hormones affect that.
definitely.
So but my whole big round the
Well, no,
gardens
I was
point
going
is
to quickly add into the viewers and listeners to get some perspective within the wrestling world. You're competing every week.
Every
as well.
weekend, every
Every
weekend, yeah.
So you're potentially trying to weight cut every single
Every
week,
weekend,
not
yeah.
once, not 3 times a year type thing. Every single
Every-
week at a kid. So sorry, I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
And in the States, your college scholarship, that's $1 million. Like, you're not going to college unless you get a scholarship, and that can be a wrestling scholarship. So it's big stakes. But my main point is that weight cutting is not going to stop. So for me, we just need to educate people on how to do it well.
Yeah.
It's never going to stop. People are, you know yourself, even in jiu-jitsu, you're playing around with the rules. Like, that's not quite a reap. My foot was just, everyone's always just pushing as much as they can before it's a rule break. So I think the same applies with weight cuts. So the more we can educate people on here, this is a good way to manipulate your body mass for a competition.
I think it's going to be hard because obviously, again, we've got some practitioners out there. Again, another shout out to Geordie obviously for this, is the fact that you don't want to, there's been people in the past who've stuck their neck out to say this is how to do it properly, and they've been torn down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is how you water load, this is how you water cut, this is the diet you need to do type thing. So I think Conor McGregor's old nutritionist, Lockhart, I think it was, got slated for basically doing keto and intermittent fasting in the same sort of dieting structure to make weight. And so he got chopped down pretty quickly. And then to the point where he was actually quite high up in the States, like Joe Rogan had him on, all this type of stuff,
of course,
and everything like that. And then all of a sudden it's just like, nope, you're gone. And it's just like, it's quite cutthroat to say the least. That, like, cool.
There's been a couple of nutritionists like that though. You've had Mike Dolce.
I was going to say, the guy, I couldn't think Dolce,
Dolce was really good.
He was doing all the UFC fighters for a while, wasn't he?
Because Luke Barnett, the UFC fighter, doesn't compete anymore. He's obviously with Ilias. He was doing a thing where if you buy the Dolce book, I'm setting up behalf of him, I'll send you an autograph photo. I was like, oh, cool, I'll get on that. Helps everyone out. And he's just disappeared. I know he does still operate, but he's nowhere near as big as he was. But the diet book is really interesting, but it is mainly based around, surprise, surprise, eating in a calorie deficit. And just being really clever with your training.
It's tricky. I like to think we're in a time now where people are a little bit more open to what people are saying, I think. Whereas I think at the time, obviously, of Mike Dolce, obviously Lockhart, it was before UFC PI, for example.
Exactly, and the studies weren't there for those guys.
Yeah, and so again, it's sad to say they obviously RIP type thing. But it's one of those things that it can be quite concerning. Like, I would have very big concerns about sticking my neck out and just being criticised by absolutely everyone.
Oh God,
and the problem is obviously with how marketing is and social media, you've got to be outlandish, you've got to say stuff, you've got to try and do that type of thing. But when it comes in the world of like not health and safety, but human well-being, you can't be like, we're just going to do a keto diet and intermittent fasting, and we're going to do this for this type of thing. And it's just like, because it may work for some people, as we will say, but not for everyone else. And then there'll be someone who will then come in and just completely chop it down, and then you'll just be looking like an absolute fool.
Anything that's cookie cutter is just not going to work. It's not going to fly. It's not going to be. But I find so those guys, I would hope we're working with good intention, but with bad science. Basically, like a lot of the, even when I was doing my thesis, a lot of even the performance science is done on endurance sports. So. And then if you're looking at jiu-jitsu, you're actually using all energy systems. You're sprinting, your endurance, your mid-level. So me looking at a study where they sent 100 cyclists to do a 90-kilometre cycle, it's just really not helpful unless you're that sandbagger that's just got someone under mount and is just lying there for the whole match. But like, it's...
Look, I will own up to that one competition. There was a man mounted in front of him who apparently was like some Welsh powerlifting champion, and I was up by 2 points. And I just basically stayed in turtle for the rest of the match. I was like, I ain't moving from here. I'm just staying here. Coach was like, why don't you roll out? Because I'm like, you're going to charge at me again? So I'm going to stay here and look active. But it's really tricky, and I think it's never going to be sort of clear cut as to what we need to do. It's going to be ever evolving, and I think, in essence, it's kind of a similar stance I take on sort of the steroid talk at the moment within the jiu-jitsu world. We need to stop stigmatizing this as deep, dark secret, right? Female anatomy, male anatomy, how to weight cut properly. It just needs to be openly talked about. I think people just need to accept that, hey, we may get things wrong. right?
Yeah.
It may
Science
change
is
with time,
moving all the time. All the time.
And it'll be the case of, it's not the fact that, oh, you've done something wrong 10 years ago. It's kind of say, well, look, we've evolved since then. That's fine. Let's accept this, move on, and look on to the next few different things.
Yeah.
And say, great, this is going to evolve later. Because for me, I'm sure you're more than aware of this, Lindsay, is the fact that the time frame of which, I don't know, vasopressin obviously is like available for that hormone to stop pissing more, basically,
Yeah.
all the time. We don't know how long it's open for. We don't know how
No.
long that hormone stays
No.
up for to keep that constant urination going for the water loading period.
Yeah.
But the day it does come along, I'm right, wicked guys, right?
Yeah, let's just
let's
yeah,
make this even
make
easier.
hay while the sun shines, as they say, you know.
Exactly. And it's nice to see we've moved away from, again, we had another guy who's, he came to me, helped him with Weightcut recently. He's like, why is the rest of the gym doing a water load for 2 weeks? I'm like, I don't know either. You tell me.
2 weeks.
2 weeks they're
Christ.
water loading for. And
Yeah.
I was like, we don't need to do it for anywhere near
No.
that long, mate. And if anything, I'll say, like, it might even be negative that they may not even piss as much because their
It will
body's
adjust.
potentially
Yeah,
adapting
their
to
set
this.
point, yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, okay, absolutely fine. Just let them do that. And like, again, you just try your best to sort of like
Yeah.
blast it off and just ignore it type of thing. But you're still thinking like, there's so much bullshit out there still where
Yeah.
people, you think, oh, we're getting somewhere. Yeah, people know what a calorie is and this type of stuff. It's like, yeah, I've been eating clean for the last 8 weeks and still nothing's happened. And you're like, okay, right. Take a breath.
Where do we
we'll
go?
get there.
Where
We'll
do we
get
go?
there.
But that the worst is for me is like a lot of the physiological responses in female bodies with hormone fluctuations. They don't understand why. Like, say for example, like estrogen and progesterone affecting your water balance, so the vasopressin drop in estrogen changes the set point, and they've done some studies where they've put in, say, progesterone blockers and put in estrogen and vice versa, and they're like, you know, this seems to change the set point, but we don't know how or why. So you're kind of like, no, like this is a thing. Like, so say in postmenopausal women, they're much more prone to dehydration because they don't have the estrogen. Estrogen helps you flush out water and like it controls your thirst and stuff. So you're just like, no, yeah, like drink more in these 2 weeks. And they're like, why? And I'm like, fucking sex hormones. Like, you know, it's just like,
This goes back to my point of like, you're relying on like maybe 1 or 2 studies. And the thing is, you're there like, well, don't question me again, please, because I've got nothing else to respond to with this right now.
and they're like, we know these symptoms happen, and it's typical as well. Again, it's like the pharmaceutical world. They're like, we know these are the symptoms that happen, and like me, the person that likes to look at the whole picture, is like, yeah, but why? Why did you not study why that happens? Like, you've just confirmed to me that this happens, but you've not explained to me why. And they're like, oh, no, we needed the result. That's what we studied. There it is. There's your data. You know.
Likewise. To come back in 2 years' time with a new product for you, type of thing, and you're like, okay. And then the problem is your tin hat comes on because you try your best not to.
Oh,
100%.
100%. Yeah.
I don't want to be, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Eddie Bravo, but like, do you know what I mean? Just like fully on into it. And the aliens came along and told us what to do type thing. But yeah, it's really tricky. It's ever evolving. Like I said, we had a quick pause. We had to do a quick technical change. It's just been a very free-flowing conversation. It's nice to have the same sort of problems and issues with different things, if you see what I mean. And
it's not just your clients,
not just my clients. Not just, it's just, everyone to say the least. I feel like you want to ask questions.
We've got some questions, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
Lord.
very aware that they've only just come off the flight, so we should probably do some questions and wrap it up.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because I expect you're tired. So complete and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is just
Steal the
I can
mic.
hear myself. This is horrible. Although we can still hear you at the same time.
Okay,
So that's fine.
You're Jamie.
Yeah, but I don't want to go on camera. So it's fine.
One
Not
day,
yet.
one day.
So we did get a few questions come through, as predicted. They're mainly around menstruation, as you were saying. So one of them was how to manage cravings during menstruation, also the fatigue behind it as well. Is there anything that you can kind of pinpoint? It was quite a broad spectrum question.
Yeah. Well, this is something that comes up a lot, and it's actually very easy. Just to explain why that happens is, again, that drop in progesterone drops your serotonin, and carbohydrates help you make serotonin. So you genuinely physiologically are craving carbohydrates that week, and for most women, carbohydrates means chocolate. To be honest, they're not craving vegetables; they're craving chocolate. But also your body, your insulin sensitivity is messed up on that week as well. So even the carbohydrates you're taking in, you're not using them as well as you do in the other phase of the cycle. So there's a threefold situation there that's happening. But what I do with fighters, first of all, and with any menstrual cycle related stuff is knowing that really helps them. Like having them say, okay, so because again, there's a lot of shame in food choices for females that are trying to make weight. So them not thinking I'm actually just a pig that wants chocolate. This is a thing happening. And what I do with clients is generally we would add more carbs that week. If it's a really hard thing for them, we'll move to maintenance calories that week. And like we'll know from the data. But definitely get more calories from carbohydrates and like fruit carbohydrates. And then at that stage, if you're still wanting something sweet, have something sweet. You know, generally if they fill themselves with the good veg, with the good fruit, and that kind of helps improve the mood generally. And then if you're still wanting some chocolate, you've got to just have some chocolate.
Yeah, that's cool. The only other thing I was going to say is just picking up. Hang on, I got to check my notes. Bear with.
That's all right. I was going to say, I'm just going to quickly add this in.
Yeah,
I think
that's fine. Not catching it.
with what you were saying there again, it's that kind of like psychological aspect of it, having confidence around the actions that the individual's doing.
Yes.
And I think unless you have to make weight, you don't need to have these limitations set on yourself.
100%, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's about building that confidence to understand like what's going on in the first place, and then going, oh, okay, cool. Well, this is what's happening right now. Cool, I understand it. This is quite normal, and it's not going to happen over one menstruation.
Absolutely not.
It's going to take several points of like adjustment, understanding it, and then realizing the markers of it, and then kind of going. And that time frame, we always set ourselves mentally like, oh, I've had this conversation, light bulb, cool, this is all solved. It never works like that. It's like, okay, cool. And then you'll maybe get a bit of confidence around it, and then you'll have your confidence knocked all of a sudden because something didn't happen exactly right. And you're like, oh, am I doing the right things? And it's like, no, everything's fine. It's about practice, rehearsal, and over and over and over again, so that when it comes to it, you're like, cool, I know exactly what's going on type thing.
And then just moving away from the day-to-day mindset, like if I was like, I had a bad day today, I've ruined everything, and I'm like, actually, the way I assign your calories is by the month. So like if you've gone over by 400 or 500 calories to what you would have liked to have today, the grand scheme of a month, not a big deal, don't worry about it, you know.
If you're making progress based on like 100 calories here or there type thing, you're very satisfied with very minimal sort of results to put it into perspective. We kind of have like markers and targets that we try and work with the individuals based if they're happy to respond to them. And I'm like, look, your 1 kg a week that we're aiming for, right? It's not going to be made or broke by sort of the fact that you had some extra mayonnaise on your meal, right? You'll be very dissatisfied with the fact you're moving around 0.1 of a gram each and every week, and I'm going to look like an absolute fraud type thing. So. Yeah, that kind of puts it into perspective. But you know, let me ask you, monthly, how do you sort of monitor that? Do you just get all the numbers in on a spreadsheet, or have you got software? No,
generally I'll figure it out. I'll figure out their BMR, I'll get their activity level, I'll adjust for it. And then generally with people, I'll ask them to do a certain level for 2 weeks and take the data from their body. I'm always like taking data from people's body rather than just, you know, and then depending on the person, some people just like to have a stable situation. Some people are like, I like to eat out at the weekend with my husband, blah, 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 so I'll assign them calories there and stuff. But generally, like if I'm comparing a progress of a female, it's day 1 of her cycle versus day 1 of her cycle. It's not day 1 versus day 8. It's so changeable that, and you know yourself, it all just fluctuates. So I'm always saying, as long as the trend is downward, the fluctuations don't matter. So if your highest set point is down each month, you're getting somewhere.
I've just thought of another question. Sorry, Tom. I really need to ask this because I had a client previously, right? A female client taking creatine. Fluctuations all over the shop, and she's like premenopausal as well. But we're talking where normally most of the time, let's say obviously we're taking obviously cycles into consideration, but you see most of the weight sort of clustering together and moving in a nice little trend. This client, however, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I was boggling my mind, and obviously again, sort of the imposter syndrome kicks in. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. What's going on here? Like we've done everything. Like we've given meal plans, we've gone off structure, we've done this, we've done that. And I'm like, I've got a good relationship with this client that they really want, obviously, to get a good result type thing. That I don't want to be like, you're lying, you're eating more.
I was just going to say, that's the first thing you go to is like,
and you're like
how honest are you being?
I know, and in my head I'm like, I don't want to go down that route at that moment because it just, I feel like sometimes can like taint into that like relationship a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, if you've got a cracking relationship, like you're being a dickhead, like sort your life out type thing, that's fine. But yeah, her weight was just moving up and down. Took it out, everything. I'll show you the like.
Took the creatine,
I took the creatine out, and everything just started happening as if it was supposed to. And I was like, this is really odd. And I could have never come across anything. Like,
Yeah.
you hear people go, oh, I'm putting a load of weight on with creatine. Like, it's marginal, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it settles
And
usually.
it settled. It just wouldn't settle at all. And I was like, this is, and it's only when we took it out, it like went back to normality. I was just like, never seen that or heard that before.
The word has escaped me, but what creatine turns into in your muscle, what is that? But she might have that genetic snip, but she has that very, very high.
Yeah, I know about that now. I can't remember the word.
It sounds like creatine, but it's not creatine. But I just keep saying creatine in my head. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm with you.
We have to Google this so people are not bothered by us.
I'll do exactly the same thing if I can't think of something.
I was going to say, I'm sure it's crealine, but I don't think
No,
it is.
it's like creatinine or something, you know.
You've got the other blood marker, which is creatine, which everyone says to me, oh, I've had the doctor said I'm having too much creatine in my diet. I'm like, no, that's a different thing.
Yeah,
like,
they know,
that's
yeah.
completely
But
different.
that's-
I'm like,
but that's
that
all
could,
I can
that
hear.
could be elevated with just you and go in the gym more type of thing. And they're like, oh, but they said it was bad. I'm like, don't worry.
Creatine kinase?
No.
No, that's what I got here on the enzyme for it.
Someone posted in the comments what it
Yeah.
is before we go crazy.
Yeah, it's
We're not frauds, we promise.
it's
Yeah.
the weird
Anyone
ATP to ADP transition.
Yeah.
It sits in
Yeah.
the middle, doesn't it, somewhere? It's
Yeah, I was completely blown by it. And it's
Yeah.
one of those very rare occasions where I was just like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Like, this is
and the creatine was the thing.
And it was
yeah.
the thing. And I was just like, I couldn't get really, really odd for it. Sorry, that was a complete
Yeah.
tangent. I was just like, I was wondering if you came across it before.
No, I haven't. I came across it in a man, and
Really?
he got bloods, and his insert word here was very, very elevated. So we took it. He doesn't need it, basically.
That's so interesting.
Figure out what the word is.
We will do.
Put it in like a little block, like, it's this.
Bam, this is the
Yeah,
word.
this
Here's
is
your
the word.
nutrition education for the day.
Right, you know,
Sorry.
that's fine.
I'll keep looking while you read the next
That's
question
okay.
there.
So we've got some kind of
I would do the same, but
It's a bit
my
of a-
phone's over there. I'm using the
Yeah, yeah,
camera. I can't do it.
It's a bit of a weird question. Well, I say weird. It's kind of a funny question, but then I think with the current state of things, it's also probably quite relevant. So, with the rise of AI, do either of you think that eventually you could be replaced?
I love this question.
And the only reason I say that is because obviously, you know, you've got people threatening about intellectual property in terms of writing films and music and stuff like
I
that.
think I've got this now. I'll let you carry on looking research.
It's just,
Yeah,
you
go
know,
on.
if you think about it, you know, searches through Google and all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
At some point, do you feel like it will ever replace the human value behind being a nutritionist?
No.
Whether it be male or female?
Not at all. Right. The difference being is that AI is good at drawing out data, okay, and customizing it to the parameters that you set within it, okay. And the example I give to any inquiry that comes through is that as a nutritionist, in the way that, I'm presuming obviously the same sort of thing with you, is the fact that if I put a rat in a wheel, made it run around the wheel 10 times, gave it X amount of food and there's certain food groups type of thing, I as a scientist would expect said result, right? Which is the way that AI is going to work on this. Yeah, based on the parameters that you set within it. We're not rats, and the clients that I work with, I don't treat like rats. As I say to everyone, if they want to lose weight, go and eat 3 bags of rice a day, run a marathon, fantastic, that's no problem. Don't have to worry about anything else, yeah? But there's a humanistic touch to it, which AI cannot give. Now, if AI is able to start, this is getting tin hat motion type
put it
thing,
on, let's
like
go.
emotional, and I was able to be able
That's
to
the
relate
tin
to this.
underneath there it is.
There it is. If it's able to help with emotional regulation and trying to have that sort of nutritional therapy that we've kind of discussed,
Yeah.
then maybe that could be a discussion. But then I think there's an element of human interaction as well that's needed.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of FaceTime with clients, so I'm guessing obviously you see people in person
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Like depending on the particular client I might be working with, and so like we obviously going to see some people later type of thing. People still yearn for it, and that's why again an emphasis on this podcast is that we wanted to do it in person rather than on Zoom because we don't need to do Zoom anymore.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So.
The human nuance can never be replaced, I think. And even I would, when I'm asking people questions, because people, as you know, oftentimes are like you said earlier, which is one of my favorite sentences, is people, I've tried everything. I'm just like, for how long did you try everything?
Yeah.
And but you know, when
So
when
it's
I
funny
asked
you
them,
say that
yeah,
because on our last podcast, sorry, I completely adjust. Mark Hibbard was saying that he gave everything a good solid 6 months
Yeah.
before he decided, right,
It
this
wasn't
is
for him.
bullshit now, it's not working. I think I was doing quite a few, so I did like I told Jay about this the other day. I got on the hype.
He's
of
not my client,
fat
by the way.
diets. No, I'm not. No, I'm not one of Jay's clients. That is a good point. I just steal 3-bit tidbits from him and add it up into a book, and I'm going to sell it later on.
It's like a gypsy stealing things from you.
Yeah. But basically, what was I taking? I was taking USN Cedricut tablets, which are like thermal
Yeah,
fat burning
yeah.
tablets back in 2000 and fucking hell.
Caffeine and
Must be,
pepper.
yeah, like 2012 maybe, something like that. So I was like 20 and I was like, oh, take these will help. But attached in there was like a lipid fat diet. So you basically, the premise of it was anything that you cook in a pan, if it leaves white fat, don't eat it.
Oh no.
And I was like, okay, so like pork and other stuff like that. And I
All
was
the
like, oh, I
goodies.
don't eat much of that anyway.
Good stuff.
But the lunches, I was telling Jay, and he was just like, that's just awful, was like, you could have a choice of one whole sweet potato with half a bag of spinach. I can see you cringing already. Wait, and the best bit is one whole tin of tuna that had to be in spring water. And that's all you could eat for lunch. And I get through it, and I'm like, yeah, this is cool. And by day 2, I was like, this is fucking shit. This is the worst thing I've done. But I did see results from it. And I was like, oh, okay, it must be the tablets working. It wasn't. It's the fact that I was going to the gym and I was reducing my calories. And I just completely, like you said, like bro science. I was like, oh, this works, this is fun.
It's the
And then
feeder
I've
cuts.
done, I've eliminated a lot of things. So I did like an 8-month food diary of stuff that I was
Nice.
eating. And I basically found out that if I eat onion or like anything with too much paprika in it, it makes me fucking want to die.
Yeah.
Ice cream's a big proponent for me as well. Can't touch ice cream.
Yeah, dairy.
It's like a brick in my stomach for hours afterwards. But I can eat chocolate, so it's a bit weird.
I can be funny with dairy though, is that like
Yeah.
I eat a lot of real butter and cream, not a problem. If I were to drink milk or like get a milkshake or have ice cream, I really feel it in my sinus straight away.
Yeah. Same with me with some protein shakes. I can't touch them.
Some of
And
the, yeah.
For ages when I started taking creatine under recommendation of Mr. Doctor here.
No, I am not a doctor, just to make sure anyone listens to this.
Yeah, you're a fake doctor, it's fine. No, I read up quite a bit at first because I was aware there was quite a lot of people saying they were getting like skin reactions from it, and I've got quite sensitive skin anyway.
Right.
And I started taking it, and I didn't have one. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. So it's just dependent on person to person.
Yeah,
It's the same
which
thing
is-
with every diet and
Yeah.
everything else. It all kind of works depending on the person, how much effort you're putting.
And therein is the reason AI would never replace us, because it's so
Yeah.
person dependent. And
Yeah.
but even the human interaction, like I like to see people's body answer questions for me when I ask. Like, so if I'm like, you know, do you think you eat enough vegetables? And they're like, yeah, and then I can just see, like, you know, you need to physically see the person and to really assess the situation. And then again, like you've already, it sounds like you're the same as me, is I've a very holistic approach to things. Like I like to tell people to sleep, tell people to be a lot. Like I have a client at the minute I'm working with, and like she's just like, Lindsey, you're the best therapist I ever had, because like a few weeks ago I just basically said to her, and why do you think you chase chaos? And she was like, sorry. She's like, are you my nutritionist? And I was like, yeah. It's like you need to be in chaos, and like you're not gonna, like, cause she was like, would you do me? And this is a thing that comes up always. People are like, will you do me a meal plan? I'm like, no. You do a meal plan, send it to me. I'll give you my opinion on it, but I'm not doing it for you. You like engage in this situation and learn how to eat well, because then when I'm not in the picture, you'll have learned some skills. You know.
Exactly my point. So there's two things. So I had a very similar situation with a client who's just finished up with me. Very stressful life, running multiple properties, but he's like bought them, doing them up type of thing.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a handyman, so he doesn't know all the trades to obviously do it type of stuff. And constantly weekend binges every single time. Like, he's like, I want to make progress, blah, blah. I had a newborn as well. And I was like, right, okay, we previously worked before, tried to outline it, and eventually we got him success based on the fact he took a half a day on a Thursday. And
Just
he
to
was
be on his own.
Just to simply be on his own, not have to work. And he was like, it wasn't macros, it wasn't calories, it was just to de-stress. And I said, mate, the easiest way of describing it is you're a pressure cooker, right? I try and release that valve off on a Friday evening for you slowly. The likelihood of that happening is not going to happen in the slightest bit. And so then by evaluating your structure and your lifestyle, right, and kind of saying that you're busy, it may seem like a detriment that you're not working as much, right, but the quality of your work's going to go through. You're going to feel better because you have more self-control. And his wife even turned around and said, why are we not doing this? And they ended up selling one of the properties they were working on just because they were like, we just don't need this. It's too much. And he said, I didn't expect that from you. And I said, my obviously biggest reservation is I don't want to come across like, I don't know, an absolute
I know,
twat who knows everything,
I know.
right? And it's like,
It's hard.
I know how to manage people's lives. It's like when people talk about kids and stuff, obviously I haven't got kids, right?
Yeah.
But I've worked with clients who've had newborns or newborns and they've inquired, and I've worked with them and this type of stuff, and they're like, yeah, I want to start losing baby weight and everything else. I'm like,
One final sponsor shout out to the team at Inner Chimp. Inner Chimp is a brand name that really speaks to grapplers and fighters, one we can believe and relate to on a personal level. Inner Chimp is simply catchy, right? And with small tweaks can be your general gym wear and casual wear and rash guards like this for men, women and children. Inner Chimp is ethically produced and has turned down cheaper production overseas to ensure this. Understanding we only have one Earth, right, which we need to look after. This is at the forefront of their production decisions, and we want you, our listeners and viewers, to have a sense of accomplishment in knowing that you are doing your part when buying their products. Inner Chimp tees are 100% organic cotton. Their packaging, 80% recycled cardboard, and all of their products are designed to last. Their production and manufacturing is in the UK, trying and aiming to be as eco-friendly as possible, leaving close to zero global footprint. But to put it simply, Inner Chimp has a massive passion for the sport, attention to detail, and our planet in mind, and always at the forefront of your own Inner Chimp. Go check out their website, www.inner-chimp.co.uk, or go check out their Instagram at inner_chimp. Thank you for your time.
How about you just have your child for 3 months first and
Yeah.
see how well you sleep first, and then come back to me, because I can guarantee you, you're probably not going to come back to me because you're going to be sleeping.
Now is not the time
now
to
is
be,
not the time.
yeah.
And they're like, but how do you know you haven't got kids? I'm like, I just know from experience so far, speaking to different people. Don't get me wrong, people can be unique. People might have
Of course, yeah.
different circumstances set up, type of thing. But yeah, our role evolves to so many different things, because even though it's not directly, here's your macro split, here's your food, here's that type of thing, if I can control how you're going to react to it, that's part of the job as well.
Yeah,
Type thing.
it's just so intertwined. It's not food. Like, everybody knows what a good balanced square meal looks like.
We hope so.
And everybody, well, yeah, most people, I should say.
Very much
Most
square
people
meal.
could find what they need to find. It's not, like, knowing what to do is not enough, basically, is the thing. Like, having someone help you implement it into your life. Like, I always say to people, the best diet is the one that's sustainable for you. That's the best way to do it. But seeing the person, and, like, you know, from your consultation with them, you get right in there. I'm just like, you know, like, there's still people, and it amazes me. I'll be like, so how often do your bowels move? And they're like, and I'm like, how did you not think that's relevant to your nutrition? Will you buckle up, because we're talking about poo.
Here comes the Bristol Soul
And after that, we're going into periods, and after that, we're going to go into, you know, it's just like,
all these details come into play, and like again, it's come back to meal plan statement. It's such a common one, and like I've turned people away and like, can you do me a meal plan? No.
yeah.
Like, why? Like, unless you go more into detail for this, I'm not. And if you're not prepared to talk to me about this, then I'm not doing a meal plan.
Yeah.
Right? I've got no context. I have no idea who you are. We have not built a relationship.
I'll
Right?
just tell you to eat what I eat,
Yeah,
what I like to eat.
exactly. And
I
wait,
love an omelette. Now you're having an omelette for breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea being is that I kind of say to people, we want to do, I refer to it as a blueprint, right? I want an assessment of what you're doing over 4 to 5 days. So
Yeah,
you just see
same,
everything
yeah,
you're
yeah.
doing, right?
Yeah.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to change some details.
Tweak what you're doing. Yeah.
Tweak what you're doing, because guess what? You're going to eat food you like. Yeah, you want a Domino's pizza, fucking no
Yeah.
problem. You want a chocolate bar here. You want to, I don't know, eat chicken, broccoli and rice the rest of the day. So that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And then the reason we want to look at this is that so that then we're going to make you be consistent with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I just take that all away and give you a load of foods you absolutely despise, right? Even though, but it's for the greater good, I'm
Yeah.
going to lose weight, it's going to work type thing. I know you're just a ticking time bomb before you go,
It's not,
fuck it,
no.
I can't be bothered with this.
Yeah, no.
And it's the same statement I say, if you're doing a dieting structure, you need to ask yourself, genuinely, not this like cliche, what you're going to be doing in 5 to 10 years' time.
Yeah.
Can you be doing this for the rest of your life, right? And if the answer is clearly no, or kind of like maybe a little, you need
Yeah.
to change it.
Yeah, yeah.
Simple as.
It's like the people like, oh, I done really well on keto. I'm like, well,
That's good for you.
obviously not, because you're not still doing it. So,
Yeah.
you
Or
know,
we wouldn't be having this conversation in the first place.
Yeah,
Like, do you know what I mean?
yeah.
That's the way I look at it more so.
Or like, it just wasn't sustainable, whatever. Like, I personally, me as a person, I do better on higher fat, lower carbs. I can manage on lower carbs. I know that of myself, but not jiu-jitsu. So I get it, and I'm open to people's energy systems and what they do and what their preferences are. I love meat. I love red meat, fatty meat, oily fish. So for someone to say to me, just eat meat, like, you know, just eat fat and a little bit of protein. I'm like, I'm sold. I'm in.
That's
You
when
know.
Tyson Fury went obviously down the keto route in boxing, and it was like, oh, I need to do this type of thing. So I knew you got questions. It's just easy conversation flowing it. Really easy conversation. We need like a beer. And at the same time, when you know what I'm talking about. How about we come back over to you this time?
Yeah, totally. We'll have you over.
And yeah, it's the same thing. And do you know what? It's interesting because it gets labelled instantly as like keto, carnivore.
People need a label.
They need the label, and I'm like, why can't you just be eating a high protein diet?
Yeah.
That's all it
For
is.
me, I'm just like, okay, well, let's just eat like a vegetarian that eats meat.
Yeah, that's it.
So loads of veg, loads of meat.
Yeah,
You know,
no
you're
problems with
sorted.
it at all. Right, sorry Tom, I'll stop interjecting.
Sorry, you don't need to apologise, mate. It's fine. Kind of going back slightly towards jiu-jitsu wise, and Amanda, you can probably help with this as well. We had a previous podcast with Emily, one of our brown belts. Yeah, brown belt. But basically, all it was is we wanted to know, in terms of you both competing, have you had to float up weights to get a match before?
Yeah.
Because Emily was saying she's had to go up like double her weight class and compete against someone who's way higher weight class compared to her just to get a match. And it was just like, she can't find anyone at her weight at some of these quite big competitions.
Is she like teen? Is she rooster or like?
No, she's a
She's middle.
heavy.
I think
Oh,
she's and she was saying she's having to fight like 80 plus.
Yeah,
like,
Wow.
I think she's on a weight cut now. I think she just posted literally an hour ago.
Well,
saying
based on
she's
her post
on-
last night, she was like, weight cut and weight one more time.
Yeah, weight cut. And I think she's starting now like 75.2. So I think
Right.
she's going down again.
She's going to
just
try to get
a
under the
match.
74.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've had it like in Irish competitions where I've went in at 69, but there's been no one, so I've gone up to 74. But
Yeah, her division is quite tricky. I'd say
Yeah.
that above 70, then it's quite hard to find anyone. Like,
Is it as the belts go up, do you think? Because I guess I would have
On top
competed
of
at
that, on
like
top of
blue,
that.
so when you get up to the higher belts,
Yeah,
it's
blue is usually packed, but still, it's always harder to find fights at above 70. And then the higher you go in the belts, just generally, there's less and less people. So for her, of course, it's going to be harder. But
and it breaks my heart. IBJF, the highest female weight class is plus 79. Like if you're above 5'6" and an athletic woman, you're probably about 73, 72. So you.
Unless you're Gary.
Sorry, that's another conversation.
That might be something else.
But yeah, that's tough. That's tough. But we always conversed about this with regards to the going into your division fed and stuff. And we talk about like I think sometimes you'll have. Obviously, we have no-go roles like white belt, blue belt men. Some like you have to vet them. It's normally not really worth it for your safety or your sanity. But then there'll be weight discrepancies, and there's some people that are really sensitive. Like I can't row. And we kind of generally are like it's like within 10 kilos, I think you can't complain in jiu-jitsu. It'd be different than boxing or something. But then what was it someone that said like 10 kilos equates to a belt, basically. So someone, it was one of the American, I'm so bad with names.
something about, every 10 kilo is
So
a
like
belt above
to what you
you.
said earlier, the blue belt, that's 30 kilos heavier than the black belt. He's now become a black belt because he's like 10 kilos for purple, 10, you know.
We had this conversation with someone else. It was about if after watching Who's Number One, no, Float, was it Who's Number One? Yeah, it was Who's Number One. Yeah.
It was Tezos. I don't know if it's a WNA.
I think it was WNA.
It might be a WNA.
And he was saying, this is a massive fan, Andrew Tackett, if he was the same weight as Gordon Ryan, I think would be a real problem for him. And I was like, I didn't hear the same weight bit. I was like, is this guy been sniffing glue or something? Like, I'm sorry, like Gordon's level was very, very good, and I'm not dismissing Andrew Tackett's level was not that good, but there's a difference in size here. I know he took on Big Dan, but Gordon put on the size to help the fact that he's already that good, and was like, well, it's having an advantage here, and I was like, right, but yeah, you're right in terms of like weight differences and ability. There is going to be a discrepancy to begin with, right?
Yeah.
That is perfectly understandable. It's why we have absolutes, and some absolutes are split, obviously, as over or under a certain limit, which is cool. But it always kind of boils down to that. I think, in all honesty, there's going to be an element of technique. Because again, take that black belt who's got, I don't know, he's 30 kilograms lighter. That's a competitive black belt.
Yeah, he'll manage that.
That changes everything altogether, right? If you've got the professor who's a black belt happy with his school, hasn't competed in God knows how long, might do the occasional local comp just to maybe please his students or his ego, whatever. Yeah, he would get smashed by a blue belt, a competitive blue belt type of thing. And again, it depends on the level of the quality of training type stuff.
I think as well the difference is relevant to what the lighter person weighs. So like if this is a 60 kilo black belt, he's probably going to manage a 90 kilo blue belt very well because he's always been 60 kilo, probably in a room full of people that are 80 kilos.
Yep, exactly.
But if we're talking an 80 kilo black belt and a 110 kilo rugby player blue belt, the 80 kilo black belt's not going to be used to being the smaller in the situation. And like we always find like all the smallest girls in our gym are so, like their technique is so solid because it has to be to keep them safe. And it's amazing. Whereas I like, we say, well, we have great rolls, we just mess, but I just have brute force. That's all. I'm like, it's pig ignorance that gets me positions. And like, so, as every so often then, like even we were rolling last weekend and she like, would you mount me or side control? And I was like, Jesus, I'm going to have to do some actual jiu-jitsu now. I need a technique here, you know.
I'm sure you've been in the position where you've been mounted, you end up just sort of like pushing them off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm like halfway through the push, I'm like, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I know I should be using more than just physical brute force here. But,
like my husband calls my jiu-jitsu guard because I'm like, it's so funny because I've come from striking. So for me, if I was ever on the ground, I was in trouble, like, you know, so I'm just like, I'm just trying to wrestle people and stuff, and then, so Austin calls my guard to get back up and get a single leg guard. He's like, if I end up on the bottom, I'm like, sweep, stand back up, take them down.
We'll take the leg. Again, it's interesting, I think we had, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, that there's a guy local to us called Lee, and he's about, walks around 109, 110 ex-bodybuilder, lean as anything, has abs, all that type of stuff. Doing very well, obviously, in the white belt stuff. Went to a competition, came up against an ex-pro rugby union player who was 130 kilograms, just a bit taller, and he said, I felt like a child. Yeah. And he said, never had that experience.
Yeah, because he's not used to it, totally.
I think the other thing to put a spin on the context of that sort of analogy we're putting together with the higher weight blue belt against the black belt, it's also gi versus no gi as well, because I think, as you kind of brought up in the podcast, is that big people, how much I'm still only doing no gi at the moment, in the gi can be slowed down a hell of a lot all of a sudden. Yes. And it's just like, okay, cool, well you can't just explode out of this and just move around type thing. Like, I get that pant grip all of a sudden, like, well, you're basically like a dog on a leash until you break it type thing. And then that puts a whole different spin on that whole analogy, do you know what I mean? Of like, I could easily see a 60 kilogram black belt wrap up,
tie someone up in their gi.
Even a competitive one, do you know what I mean? Because again, they're like, it kind of what reminded me of Felipe Pena, we were talking about, Hassim, is that right? Or
Hassim Ryder.
Yeah, in the sense how he got to the back, and it was beautiful, and it was like, it reminded me again, because again, some of these guys aren't black belts yet, and they're still coming up through, but it was like the professor rolled with the cocky student type thing. Not saying he is cocky in the slightest, he's a really humble guy, but he did a move and he got to the back, and he was just like, how have I got here? You could see it on his face. And it was
panic.
Like, oh, okay, right. And then Felipe's just doing his thing, and it's just like you can see the levels to it.
But also, I think, like Ricky was saying to us, should be okay actually. I can hear myself anyway. If you can't hear me, fuck you. So Ricky was saying to us, it's about time on the mat as well, because he said, there's not many people, I would say, that can train as much as he can, because he was doing like 6-7 hours a day training jiu-jitsu. But
so it wasn't just jiu-jitsu on the 6-7 hours, it was like straight S&C, recovery, everything.
And he said obviously that gives me a unique ability, whereas if I go against a hobbyist in a competition where they may come in 2-3 times a week, do their drilling for an hour, and then they do their few hours of sparring and then done for the day. My accumulative hours, and then I reach black belt level, I'm going to walk through these people. Absolutely, because my time on the mat experience compared to theirs is at such disparity that I can just outgun them basically.
Yeah, a couple
and he
of
was just saying it just comes into his own game.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, someone on Reddit took the time to actually do a chart of hobbyists and competitors, and like, the progress
is just like it gets like it's like a year spectrum, like gap jumps.
And also I think something we kind of touched on with Mark as well, which I kind of want to go into and probably add it in as a question for future, is there is a difference between being a competitor and being competitive.
Yes.
You know, I'm a competitor. I've competed. I've lost, but I've definitely competed. You've competed. You've won a couple. But does that make you a competitor? Are you going out every weekend? You know, are you in the ADCC Open? Are you competing every month? Are you going to IBJJF Worlds? You know what I mean? Like, if you're competing very often, you are competitive. I'd like to think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're winning rounds. But if you're just a competitor, does it really matter? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, hitting weight every single day of your life and making sure, like, if you're as focused as hitting weight as a competitor, being competitive, should you be that kind of nailed down on your weight in general? Just spin the top right.
Oh, okay.
Just as an interesting thing, you know, because
I think it depends.
if I came to you saying, Jay, I got a competition in a few weeks, you'd be like, yeah, right, dickhead, just chill the fuck out. Like, you know, I'm not going to go compete at Worlds and say, I need to fucking win gold. Or
He's
my
lying,
house,
he is.
Yeah, or my house is getting taken away from me. Do you know what I mean? Like someone who, say, is competing full-time jiu-jitsu, whether it be male, female, who star, whatever you would recognise yourself as, if you're doing that as like your job, like, you know,
You still get hate for it.
but no. But the point I'm trying to get is, you know, if you're doing that as your main job, would you change someone's nutrition on if they're a competitor or competitive on that sense as well?
So I think again it comes to my role to understand the individual that I'm working with, right? As to what extent they need to be pushing these extremities to, right? Similar to what we talked about. I don't know if it was off air or not, but the idea of the menstrual cycle about upturning your whole life to optimize that let's just call it a percent, right? Within your performance, okay? If I have an individual who's, let's say, a mother, three kids, right, who has aspirations of maybe going to the Worlds type of thing, but the reality check behind it is that they may be good, but they haven't got as much free time. They're working a full-time job and stuff like this. I think it's my responsibility to outline to them at the beginning of the consultation period and where that roadmap's going to go as to expectations. Now,
managing expectations.
If I'm speaking to them and they're saying, I've got all this, I've got all these other things, I've got 3 kids, I work a full-time job, however, I've got a sabbatical for 8 weeks to work towards Worlds, I've got a babysitter who's looking after all the kids and I can go full hog, right? I'm going tick, 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 tick. I'm there going, cool. My first port of call, I'm sure as you're aware, is right, I'm not going to give you the heel hook nutrition as I kind of refer. We're going to make sure you can do the basics, and then from there we're going to start leveling up as quickly as you're responding to stuff. So I'm sure, again, you've had this situation with other clients that you give them the basics, respond to it fantastically instantly. Right? Cool, next bit, next bit, next bit, and you keep moving on. Others, as we've kind of discussed already, that you give them the basics and they can barely stick to it for more than 2 hours type thing. So I think in response to your question, it's my kind of responsibility, and I think this would be the same with anyone who's helping the athlete towards that goal, is to assess the reality behind it. It's not to crush anyone's dreams. Everyone wants to go and compete well and stuff like that. But if you look at the top end athletes who are competing, and take Colin Marte, for example, right? Competing at the top level, trains jiu-jitsu full time, doesn't need to pay a mortgage, just to put it bluntly, right? And can do as much as he wants or as little as he wants, then hey, we're going whole hog in there. If sometimes you may come across an individual like that who needs a rocket up their ass to understand that they can go further, and there's an element of encouragement that's needed and confidence building, that's fine. But you need to, again, I'm sure you said this many times, many questions you get even in nutrition, like it depends.
I know. It's the answer nobody wants, but it's the right answer all of
every
the time.
It goes back to what you were saying, that you wear a lot of hats as a nutritionist and as a gym owner as well. You know, you're the psychiatrist, doctor, bloody everything else. So I guess
the thing is, there's an element of like, always meet the person where they're at. But like, I have some people that they're the busiest people, but they're busy because they're supremely high function, and they will have they'll meal prep. They'll be like, no, have it nailed, blah blah. And then you get like someone that's 24, is a full-time athlete, trains twice a day, but actually only trains once every 2 days, and will not cook, and expects to go and win Worlds, you know. So it's meeting the individual where they're at. And then there is an element, like, because that is a sentence I often say to people, is unless it's your job to be this weight on Saturday, why are you putting yourself under so much pressure over this? But if you do adjust the basics, if they get their basic nutrition right, their body composition will represent the right weight class for them. You know, jiu-jitsu weight classes is 5 kilos. So if you're like, say between 69 and 74, so say if you're walking around at 71, then there's a decision to be made. Do you want to cut, because you're going to have to cut the way of the gi if it's a gi match, or do you want to feed up and just enter full, and then that depends. Like, I have athletes that we will do a heavier weight class for local, but we'll push to the lower one for worlds and Euros. And again, depending on the difference between the weight classes. With the women, there's not a lot. Like if you jumped in at middle or middle heavy, strength-wise, discrepancy and stuff, it's not. So like maybe with some men, I would want them in the correct weight class to feel what those bodies feel like.
Yep.
But in the female weight classes, I think you'd have to jump up 2 or 3 weight classes to have very different. So, you know, if you went from rooster to middle, there'd be a lot longer limbs to deal with. And so, you know, so you'd,
Styles.
but I think mostly,
yeah. Think about that. Cool.
yeah. So,
It's the same sort of thing we talk about with some of the guys that we deal with, in the sense that they're, again, I know we're both on the same wavelength. There's always this aspiration that everyone needs to be lighter all the time.
yeah, lighter's better, yeah.
Lighter's better. It doesn't need to be like that. And I think obviously we're slowly, I'm getting more, chatting to more and more people. Like, listen to the podcast. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to cut the weight anymore. I'm
Great,
like,
great.
Wicked, cool. If you're one of them, awesome. Keep doing it. Keep listening. The idea being is that within certain thresholds, so if you look at styles, let's say at light heavyweight, heavy, ultra, right, or super heavy, most of the styles of the gameplay are going to be take down, smash, pass, get to
Half
do
guard,
something.
yeah.
And the idea being, as soon as you get past medium heavy, is when you start to get different styles appear all of a sudden. Now, I appreciate some outliers who are heavyweights and leg lock heavy and all this type of stuff, right, which is fine. But it's where people have these aspirations to then kind of get into that threshold of then saying, you've now got a really fast opponent in front of you who is happy to pull guard instantaneously. And if you've trained for a period of time for this type of culture, like heavies, for example, you're telling me you're going to switch your whole game to
And
do
be
this,
ready to react to
and
that.
be ready to react to it. Now, don't get me wrong, in your mind you may think, oh great, absolute, this is easy, this is what I'm going to do. But now all of a sudden you're a much smaller frame. Like your strength should still be there if you've got some good S&C and stuff, but it's never going to be as superior as like you being an ultra type thing. You need to think this more than just, I'm going to be the biggest guy in the room. Because you're going to have a very rude awakening all of a sudden, like going, oh wow, I've just been absolutely smashed to pieces by someone who's like technically 20 kilograms lighter than when I first started type thing.
Yeah, yeah. And then I always remind people as well, is if you're doing well in the competition, every fight is going to be harder. So as you progress through the day, your next fight's harder, your next fight's harder. So if you've had to glycogen deplete, manipulate your water, you'll survive the first match. But by the time you get to the final,
Compound interest.
if that guy has not cut weight, he's beaten you. Even, you know, because, and especially as you get up through the belts, the technique is, they're tit for tat. Like they're different. Obviously in white belt, it's like the Wild West, and some blue belts like the Wild West. But as the belts go up, the skill levels are similar enough.
Yeah.
And for me, the nutrition is the kind of low-hanging fruit that people don't take, is just getting that right and then being on top of that. Because, like, I see a lot of now, more so with day before weigh-in type sports, I see a lot of people, they just focus on the making weight. They make weight, they think they've won. And then there's a panic that, Jesus Christ, I have to fight tomorrow, you know, and they haven't done any visualization of the fight. All they've been visualizing is burgers and pizzas for the last 10 weeks, you know, and it's just like, and I used to see it when I competed in boxing, the National Boxing Stadium in Ireland. Boxing is kind of, it's well behind with nutrition science and stuff. And I'd be weighing in and I'd be looking around and there'd be people having like breakfast rolls and Lucozade after they've weighed in and stuff. And I'm just like, oh God, just seeing these terrible decisions. And then they got to fight. And then these are like also now boxing, and the worst type of weigh-in that I've had to do is multi-day weigh-in. So you'd like weigh in the morning, fight, win, great, you're through to tomorrow, you have to weigh in again tomorrow. So there's no room for, and as the week goes on, so now you've had, like I boxed in the Haringey Box Cup, I don't know if you've heard of that, it's in over here obviously. But I got to the final, I had 5 bloody weigh-ins that week, and every weigh-in just got harder and harder. And that was one of the times that I came home and I had taken, in the space of 12 weeks, I had 3 kickboxing fights, and I had that, and I was messing with my weight at that time. Like I was trying to box at 57, I was walking around about 65. So I was boxing in the morning, winning the fight, having a big lunch, and then starting my weight cut. And I don't know what it is in the UK, but they do not like to let you into gyms to use their sauna without taking £30 off you. Like in Ireland, you can just go in and pay a £5 or something. So all these gyms are like, no, you have to buy a month's membership. And I was like, oh my God. So I didn't have a bath, I didn't have a sauna. So I was like running around a park with like everyone's clothes on me in the evenings, weigh in next morning, fight, do the whole thing again, you know.
I do wonder, have you got the biggest fear that I have, right? Which is nutritionist doesn't make weight.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And I literally,
Absolutely.
it's the newspaper
Oh my
article
God.
or social media, nutritionist doesn't make
No,
weight.
God, I know, it's so worse. Because if client doesn't make weight, you're like, they obviously didn't do what I asked.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fine.
you don't have as much problem with it. But it's like when
brush
No.
your hands for responsibility.
My last MMA fight was one of those, and I actually, as it transpired, I didn't know. I was on the pill, but I was pregnant.
okay.
Right, so I was doing my weight cut, and it was just, everything was perfect. And then we were doing the water, like the dehydration element in the bath, and I was just like, what is going on? And then Aisling Daly was doing it with me, and Austin, my husband, and I got out of the bath at one stage, and she was like, how are you? You're so lean, but your boobs are still huge. Right? And then I was like, I know, they normally disappear when I'm this lean. And then, like, made weight, won the fight. And then it was about 3 weeks later, I was like, I didn't get it. Because I don't know if you know, when you're on a pill, there's like 21 days and then there's a 7-day break. And then, so the period doesn't come in that 7-day break, the breakthrough bleed. You start the new pack, so it's not going to come then anyway, because the hormones are gone. So it was like, I got to the end of the next pack, and I was like, Jesus Christ, actually I never got a bleed, you know. And then I sent to Austin, and he was like, sure, you couldn't be pregnant. I was like, no, definitely couldn't be pregnant. And then, like, the next morning I vomited when I woke up, and I was like, need to take a test. And then I was pregnant with my son. So, but like,
Just hide where you were.
well, no, but this is the running joke in our house, because Austin's only ever done jiu-jitsu. He's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. He's like very successful competitor. I have a black belt in kickboxing, and I have a purple belt, but I have had MMA fights and stuff, so I'm like, I'm the only real fighter in the house. And like, if this fight was in a chipper, I'd beat you, you know. But I always say to him, even Bodie's 1-0 in MMA, and you haven't even had an MMA fight.
I love it. What's that reel? It's where it's like you see like a woman doing the punch bag thing, and it's like, she goes and cracks it, and then you see the guy doing the dishes, and
it's
just like
it's the lady in the hijab, isn't it? She punches out her score, gets above 900, and the next thing is her husband laying back in the floor and doing the
Our son has just started jiu-jitsu. It's actually so funny, and because I taught kickboxing for years, I've seen a lot of kids been thrown into martial art age 4 by their parents. Too much pressure on it, and they're amazing, but at age 6 they never do it again. So we left it, and I was like, when he asks, we'll bring him. So he's only started in the last month, but he's a bit obsessed with belts now. But I cannot help myself, because I'm just like, because Austin obviously is a belt ahead of me in jiu-jitsu, but I'm like, but I have a black belt in kickboxing. So Bodie's like, and so I said something like, he came out of the class and he was like, oh, I think I'm getting better. And I was like, you get better every class. Like, I'm still getting better every time I train, your dad's still getting better. And we were having that type of a conversation. I was like, that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. The better you get, the more you realize that you know nothing. And he was like, yeah, I suppose, you know, it makes sense that dad's better than you because he's a higher belt. And I was like, in jiu-jitsu. And he was like, what? And I was like, you know, I have a black belt. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, in kickboxing. So you let dad know I'm the only black belt in the house. He's like, okay.
that's the way you got to do it.
See, it's funny because fuck you. It's funny you mentioned that, because we have this ongoing thing where I only have a default bronze medal, nothing else. But I came home, my 6-year-old was like, oh, you got a medal? I'm like, yeah, I did. Yeah, I won it. He's like, oh, that's amazing. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it? And I hang out on my wall and I go, what a fucking disgrace.
But for your son though, and do you know what? Like, obviously, people posting on Instagram about default bronze, it breaks my heart. Like, there's a few people that would do a whole photo shoot with their defaults, and like, sometimes I'll get petty with it, and I'll be in on the system to check that they win any matches, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, according to Smith Comp, you didn't get that.
Yeah, but the other side of it is you showed up and you fought, and like, there's how many people train that don't do that, and you can only fight the persons in front of you. It's the same when people are like, oh, I got gold, but there was only one person at my division. It's like, yeah, so you won your division. So like, there has to be an element of pride in that. Like, obviously don't be boasting about your default bronze on Instagram, but to your little 6-year-old, you put yourself in the position where you trained for a competition and you went and you competed, you lost. You know, he doesn't need to know.
I think I can't remember who I was talking to now. I think it was Joe Bichette. And I said to him, like, oh mate, the only medal I've got is default bronze. But yeah, but that's still better than the person sitting on the safe room.
100%. Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, like I didn't get into jiu-jitsu for like the competitions or the belts or anything.
He did. He's going to try and topple Gordon.
I did, yeah. I just got into it because at the time I was really depressed and I wanted to do something to lose a bit of weight, and I hated the gym. It was boring. I like lifting weights, but I didn't like people sat inside the squat rack doing curls. I'm like, oh my fucking god.
Yeah, let me squat.
Sat on the phone scrolling, having a phone conversation. I was like, it's stupid. So I used to do karate years ago.
What belt did you get?
I don't remember the colour belts. No, I think I got 3rd belt from white.
I'm a brown belt.
Are you?
Karate.
Are you? I don't think you
Am I on the highest belt on the table here?
No, I have a 3rd degree black belt in kickboxing.
We'll do some point fighting in it if you want to see how you get on with it.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I don't know. I got 3rd from white, so I don't even know what that would be.
I think it goes, does it go orange, green, purple, or
Purple
blue?
or yellow?
Yellow,
possibly. I think
yeah.
it's yellow. I think we've got a
Maybe,
yellow belt,
so
yeah.
I think it goes yellow, orange, green in karate. So
But the difference is, obviously, in karate, you just do katas, and then you get your belt. So it's not really the same. And what I got bored with karate is that it's too static. This person has to be in a specific stance, and you have to be doing something
Yeah.
specific to combat that, and then you get your belt. And I was
I
like,
used to get told I was too
you know,
flexible
golf
and
clap.
not stable enough.
Oh,
like,
really, yeah.
And I was just like,
Not
obviously I
stiff
found jiu-jitsu, and I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
my arm a little bit more than the
Yeah.
average person. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
this works well for me.
It's-
But how good that you had the self-awareness to be like, I'm miserable, I'm a bit depressed, I want to lose
Yeah,
weight,
well,
I need to find something that I can stick to.
I did the whole take tablets thing, didn't get on with it at all, didn't leave the house for 6 months, and just decided enough's enough. I need
Something's
to go
gotta
do
give.
something.
Amazing, fair play to
I
you.
watched UFC. Oh, I could fucking do that. That's basically what it was. And I think we've mentioned this story a couple of times. I think the most eye-opening thing is jiu-jitsu. I was like, oh, this is okay. You know, I'm quite stocky. This is all right. I've got a good weight on me, so people can't grab me. But I then went to an open mat, uninvited, as a no-stripe white belt by my blue belt friend at the time, who then got the blue belt blues and has never been seen since. That was 8 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, rest in peace. And I basically got put into Neon Belly by Rod, who is one of our black belts, for probably about 5 minutes. And then he let me up and he was like, next time open mat, you wait till you're asked. I was like, okay, because I didn't know. But I was so frustrated. I walked outside and I was nearly in tears
Yeah.
of how angry I was. I was like, I can't believe I basically just got bullied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like 20. What's going on? It's ridiculous.
Amazing.
And then, like Crocker said, at that point I thought about it. I went, I can either grab my gym bag and fuck off home and never come back and go, I'm not doing that again. Bullshit. Or I can go, actually, there's something in this. Someone who's lighter than I am just pinned me to the floor and I couldn't move. Wasn't in the gi. No, it was in the gi. And I was astounded. I was like, it's weird. And I came back. Yeah, spin around, take over.
I think it depends. Like I said, you got the right mindset for jiu-jitsu. You can't fear failure. I think that's the biggest thing. And there's different levels of fearing that failure. I think in the sense that
And have some humility.
like obviously we both said about biggest failure of nutritionist doesn't make weight, right? Very important for that one. But it's like when you start doing the competition class and stuff like this, where I definitely remember one of my instructor at the moment. After being subbed about 20 times in 20 minutes, you turn around and said, Jay, I don't know how you're getting subbed so quickly. I've had longer wanks than the time you're getting subbed type of stuff. And I was
I
like,
can tell you exactly. Who
cheers for that.
instructor
And I
is.
was just like, right,
Oh,
okay. And the thing is that my way is looking at it is, one, being the bigger guy in the room, most of the other guys are smaller than me. I'm like, cool. I'm going to give them, I'm not trying to use this as an excuse, but I'm going to give them more opportunities because I move my arm up like that, they've got way more of a gap to get into the correct
Yeah,
spaces,
yeah,
right,
they're
compared to
little
them
limbs.
being smaller. So the way I look at it is if I can keep my game tight enough for them, then when it comes to a bigger person, all of a sudden I'm used to the more technical, speedier person. This is just going to be a walk in the park.
Yeah.
All I've got to do is make sure that the basic attributes of obviously what I've got to keep up there being, I don't know, a bit more top heavy, wrestling, all that type of stuff, which I can go and work with in my own time and find
Yeah.
the right people for, then it's only going to be better for it. But I think if you're going to start jiu-jitsu or in jiu-jitsu and you're not happy to fail, you need to get that like mindset check.
It'll be
very
taken
quickly.
from you, yeah.
It's not pro boxing where you need to protect that O at
Yeah,
all costs type
100%,
thing.
yeah.
Like, and especially there's an element to even say this within the boxing community is that the numbers that they get to in terms of like, let's take some of the Mexicans who are like 233 and out and all this
Yeah.
type of stuff. It's like, out of those fights, who are they actually
I know, well, that's the
fighting?
problem is that nobody respects the records anymore because they realise that they've been
Fucked.
given good opportunities. And there is an element of protecting someone starting out. Like if, you know, Dana White's a fecker for throwing people in the UFC. Now, he doesn't do the matchmaking, but giving them their first UFC fight and it's like, it's an uphill battle. They shouldn't be matched with that person for their first fight. Let them, you know. But you want to match fights for entertainment and stuff, but the humility and the losing, like you can't, like Fionn used to live with us, and well, not live with me, but she used to live in Dublin, train with us, and my goal rolling with her was if she tapped me less than once per minute in the round, I was winning. You know, so like if it was a 6-minute round and she tapped me only 4 times, I was like, yes!
I've rolled with Fionn once at a ADCC heavyweight camp, and I just couldn't believe how easy it was. It was just like, she just picked me up and just put me on the floor. I was like, okay, I'm done.
She's-
I was about to say, can we sound a feeling for that man?
No,
That's
no,
like
no.
how easy it was to roll with Fionn.
To put it in context, she knee-cut past me.
Did she?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah,
funnily enough,
that
yeah.
basic move.
Yeah.
But that's because we laugh then when you see people like, oh, Fionn has a match coming up, and I think this girl's good, I think this girl, and we're just like, until you've actually felt her, you've no clue what you're in
Her
for.
pressure is unbelievable.
No
For
clue.
someone who's, I say is light, well, no, it goes technically she's light for, what's she fighting now?
She kind of walks around in around
70?
60ish.
Yeah.
No, she's quite small.
60-ish,
She's
yeah.
short.
So
Yeah.
she's quite light, considering I'm like 82 kilos, like
Yeah.
60.
She feels like she weighs
She's weighs
100.
me.
Like she feels like she weighs 100 kilos.
Do you know who a nutritionist is? Because she's just popped out with the blue. I've never heard of her before.
Amanda knows her. I don't
Yeah,
know. She's the wife of.
Samir Chantre from Ares Jiu-Jitsu. So
Okay.
Okay. No, just again, when she called it out, I was like, oh, wicked. Shout out another nutritionist. Like,
Yeah, and she has a big following as well. Right?
Yeah, and I was just
She's
like...
based in Brazil, Amanda, or is she
no. So
London?
they live in Modesto, next to San Francisco, about 2 hours from there. And I knew her when she was studying, so that was about, that was in 2016, I think,
Yeah.
or 18, I can't remember. And yeah, slowly she's like,
Again, I'm sure as you're aware, like when you go through social media and you're all focusing on that one niche type of thing, you
Yeah.
see names pop up type of thing.
Yeah,
all of a
yeah, it's
sudden,
very interesting.
Not seen her at all, and then all of a sudden it was the shout. I was like, who's
She
this
does
person?
Fionn's boyfriend's nutrition, I think. That's where the connection was.
Okay.
No, Gabriel? Yeah, Gabriel.
Yeah,
Susan.
okay,
We saw
that
him at
makes
Grapple
sense.
Fest recently, so we've
Yeah,
seen him
we have a
compete.
chat.
Yeah.
We spoke to Damien actually, but didn't speak to Gabriel. But then Damien.
The interesting thing is with Fionn as well is I know that she said previously when she was training under Dara that she was struggling to hit weight at a point. So now that she's kind of got that dialed, her performance
I think
has gone
she-
through the roof.
I don't know if she'll probably won't mind me saying this, but she came from that judo background with,
Yeah.
like we spoke about earlier. She's been cutting weight since she was a child.
Yeah.
She had a lot of, so I think what's happened now is she's set herself up in a lovely place. She's happy, she's comfortable, and she's professional. But she's always been a professional with her training and her
Yeah.
lifting. But now she's
Yeah.
taken that professionalism
Yeah,
to her
she's
nutrition.
always competed. It's like she's always been someone that I've been aware of on the radar because there's not many. What's the word? I guess high profile. You'd say like female black
yeah.
belts from the UK. There is quite a few now, I think, but back when I started, like 7-8 years ago, it was
Yeah.
few and far between. You've got like obviously Vanessa English and Ashley Bando and people like that now. And if I haven't messed anyone, I'm really sorry. But like, you know, it's getting to a level now where they're getting so much more press and social media and everything else that people are like, oh, they're really cool. It's like, yeah, but you should see the match when they were a brown belt.
Yeah.
And they had like the dog in them to win the championship. Like it was unbelievable, especially
Yeah.
with Fionn. When she won Worlds before she got her black belt, her performance was unreal. You know, so yeah.
I did another point I wanted to make. I actually remember, I can't remember for the life of me. What was it? I was going to bug the shit out of me.
Was it
There was a point I was going to say. It was something we were talking about Fionn, and it was about nutritionists, and I was like, okay.
When you see
cool.
someone in the industry getting excited about.
That was it, because we talked about this earlier before we started about me and you have both said that we've spoken to people quite high up in, I don't know, the jiu-jitsu world, worlds, ADCC, whatever you want to call it type of thing. You speak to them and you figure out what they're, not say figure out, you find out what they're doing, and
Yeah.
you're like, please tell me this is a joke.
I know.
And you're like, and my view is obviously shit rolls downhill in the sense that if you're doing this, right, the majority of you guys are going to have a school, or you're going to be teaching classes or
Yes.
something like this,
Yeah.
and what are they going to go to? Oh, he's the guy who does ADCC, or he goes to the Worlds,
Yeah.
he knows what he's doing, and then from there it kind of keeps trickling down.
Yeah.
And so it's then saying, right, if the guys at the top and the girls at the top are doing this,
Yeah.
what on earth is everyone else doing?
And then when I look at those guys and what they're achieving on anti-nutritious diets. I'm just like, can you imagine if
What they like it,
if
they
we
were, like-
fueled you correctly,
Yep.
you'd be taking limbs home, you know.
Imagine if Mikey Musumeci had a nutritionist.
Honestly.
His diet fascinates me.
If Usain Bolt didn't have chicken nuggets before he
Yeah,
raced
I
every
love
time,
using
like,
that
do you
one.
know
Yeah,
what,
I love using that
the
one.
100-meter record would be 5 seconds.
Again, Mikey Musumeci, I think that anything I just want to know is how much activity he's doing, because
It'll
that's
catch
the
up with
missing
him.
piece.
It will
of-
catch up with him eventually. He's a young
He
lad.
said that he
He's
trains with his sister. I think it's like a minimum of like 4 hours a day.
Yeah, but that's the kind of missing metric that we don't know, because obviously there's
Yeah.
some people who go and say, I went and trained, for example. I'm like, did you train or did you teach a class? Like, it's a big
Yes,
considerable
yes,
difference.
yes.
Was this training where you were just holding white belts in certain positions because they were just being spazzy, or was this comp class
Was
and
it-
you were
yeah.
out your asshole type of thing, dying for 90 minutes type stuff?
Yeah.
But that's the key bit, because obviously we see the images, we see him make weight, we
Yeah.
see the foods that he eats, and he talks about briefly, obviously, with Rogan about him fasting and coffee and all this type of
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm like, we're just missing one key data, and then it'll make sense type
Yeah.
of thing. And I know.
Or hopefully he's not like the influencers that are like, oh, I'm having a pizza, and they just take the photo and then don't eat the food. you
Eat
know?
my protein powder, which I have like 5 times a day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like
And
your
then they're just
McDonald's
having
behind them.
yeah,
It's like the
no.
UFC when they hang out the monster can. It's like, that shit's empty.
Yeah, yeah. It's like he's
Yeah,
been
mine-
holding it
mine
upside
will
down
definitely
for the
not
whole
empty.
thing.
Monster, I'm still after a sponsorship.
But that
please.
thing about the elite level athletes, so what I used to do is, again, because the imposter syndrome that I've put to bed this year, but I used to be thinking, they probably know more than me kind of thing. And my big eye-opener for that was UFC Dublin in 2015. So you had like all of the Irish were on it except for Conor. So you had your Paddy Houlihan, your Ashton Daly, and I was working with Ash, Cathal Prenders was there. And I was just like looking around at all the fights. So even the pre-weigh-in chat, like Dana White brings everybody in, talks about like the schedule, blah, blah, so the coaches and the fighters will go in. And it was like, oh, just biscuits and cakes, and all the fighters that I knew were weighing in tomorrow were just like picking up biscuits and cakes and stuff. And I was just like, this is, and then like just seeing all of the, like we were staying in the hotel, they were going for breakfast, and I was just like, because you know in your head you're like, that this is the UFC, and then you're looking at people and they don't have a clue, and you're just like, wow, like it's amazing what people can achieve with little knowledge. And
Well, I can say on a positive note, I have spoken to some people before, and then because you're so used to the opposite, everything's
Yes,
really bad,
yes,
and
yes.
you're like, I think I had that when I spoke to Ashley Bendel and Drake, and I was like, and from what I understand, Chris Reeves, obviously, who runs everything there, has done loads with different people. They've got some wicked people, and
Yeah.
obviously shout out to Aidan, we're trying to get him on here at some point as well. And it's like, oh, that's actually a real breath of fresh air. That it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you are right about this. You are
Yeah.
aware about like fiber reduction on the fight week and that type of stuff,
Yeah.
and like all these different things to try and help with it. And it's like, oh, that's cool. And like, okay, cool. I kind of, not to say I respect them even more, but I'm like,
same, you know, I do. Well, like when I have a consultation with someone and they generally have their food dialed in, I'm just like, and they have a job and they're training, and I'm just like,
respect.
fair play to you,
Yeah.
really. And they'd be like, I've read this, and sometimes they think they're annoying me. They're like, oh, well, I read this, so what do you think about this? And I'm just like, I love questions, because questions mean you're really taking on board what I'm saying. And my favourite type of people to help are the people that are really trying to do good, but they're just looking in the wrong place. And if you just point their camera a little bit to the left, they nail it.
So when, let's say if we have some transformation of some sort, where someone's moved from like ultra down to medium heavy or something,
Yeah.
there's obviously some great physical changes, but there's an emphasis obviously on performance as well throughout the whole thing. People are like, great work, Jay. And I'm like, nah, credit goes to the client.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't feed him.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
cook for him. I didn't go and make him move. I didn't do anything else. He just followed the instructions type
Yeah.
thing. And like I said, I can take a percentage of it or a little bit of it,
Yeah.
but the majority goes to the client.
They put
because
the work in.
if they didn't do those things I asked, I said to everyone, look, you can start working with me, right? I've got no
Yeah.
issue with it slightest bit, but if you choose to sit on the sofa and eat crisps all day and just ignore everything I asked you to do,
Yeah.
I can't help you.
Yes, people always say that as a PT. People think because they've paid me for 10 sessions, they should have lost a stone. I'm just like, all you've done, money's part of the hand, but you haven't done any work yet.
PT's a redundant role now. I even have a fucking PT qualification. That's how laughable it is.
God, that's like when you're asking you like an unpopular jiu-jitsu opinion. That's a big statement.
But here's a question for you.
You know, you get people who go to the gym and they're a PT, and the advice they give is bullshit. They don't even know how to explain an exercise.
It's an industry in itself. The certificates you can buy. It's the quality of the certificate, I guess.
My,
you know.
my thing was, I said this to Jay, when I was doing it, I wanted to make sure that I was going to a gym that was reps associated, so I knew that reps was like the big, well, not say the big, it's like one of the most recognised places that people could be like, oh yeah, I know what reps is. You know, people can, I guess if you're in the industry, you'll know what reps is. But I guess if you walk into Pure Gym, and I'm not trying to shit on Pure Gym, just an example, the caliber of PT compared to...
I'm going to chip in there and say Pure Gym have got some very good structure now in the sense of how they try and get their PTs to come through. They even give them business advice on how to manage stuff, how to go online, all this type of stuff, right? It's still based on the individual giving a simple shit about what they're doing, right? I've had clients before who I've had to kind of say, like, you need to sack your PT off right now. He's giving you more grief and basically bullying you into doing stuff, right? And it's like, okay, this is not going to be beneficial for you in the long run.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this is all down because he's trying to treat you like a bodybuilder. Yeah.
I had recently, when people are paying me for nutrition, I don't touch. And even though like I'm a strength and conditioning coach, you know, I'm running a gym, I'm still in the thick of it. I don't step on toes. I'm like, you've paid me for your nutrition. But recently I had a client who had hypothalamic amenorrhea. She lost her period. And we made a deal that she would do World and then she would give me the summer where we would try to get her period back. So I was like, no dieting, really, like I tried no training, but she was having a panic attack. So I was like, really dial down the training, whatever. She works with a PT and she came on and called me. She's like, I just want to check with you. He says HIIT training helps hormones. Oh, and I was like, and I had to be like, I know, I was furious. And I generally don't touch stuff like that. Like you'll see people doing like sport-specific strength and conditioning, and they'll have someone doing like a hop on a Bozu ball or some shite thinking it's like jiu-jitsu specific. I don't touch that stuff, it's fine. But this, I was like, I have to go in on this. I was like, that is...
Tell me you visited this guy and
it's
showed your black belt.
absolutely... No, I couldn't. He's in a different country. But I was like, this is categorically incorrect. Like, HIIT training is so stressful on your body. You have lost your period because your body is in a state of stress.
I have one word for this person, just cunt.
I just said to her, I was like, will you just please, because I was trying to be diplomatic, and I was like, would you just please ask him what studies he's referring to and let me know, because maybe I've missed some, but I'm pretty confident I haven't missed them in the literature, and he is entirely incorrect.
That's the professional's response. Mine was what goes through my mind at the time before I'd probably say something along the similar lines. But
and then she was like, in fairness, she was like, I kind of felt like you were right. And then she was gutted because she has a great relationship and he's been a great coach to her, but she's now like, oh, this guy just doesn't, he didn't have my best interest at heart. Or couldn't. My worst type person is the person that can't admit they don't know something. Like, just, nobody has to be a specialist in everything.
If you think you know something, everything, you've got to just play. Like, I'm sure you've been put in positions before, similar to myself, where I'm not aware, right, we still can't remember the word for the process. Right? It'd be like, I will get back to you and I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, let me look into it.
You know? And these are the kind of positive messages that you should hear when looking to invest your time into an S&C person, PT, nutritionist, dietitian, whatever it may be.
Like, people come in with injuries and I'm like, mate, I'm not a physio. I can give you an educated guess on this injury, but I'm not a physio, you know. Yeah. But what I wanted to ask you was, to get back to this is I wonder, is it me being cranky or is this your feeling too? But oftentimes when people ask me for recipes, I'm like, I'm not a chef. I can let you know the components of a good plate and the meal and what's a good example of a good, say, fast-acting carb. But when people are like, and do you have any like recipe for that? I'm just like, no.
I'll do you a solid one. I'll send you, I've got about 500 plus recipes, which I haven't made. I'll openly admit that. And obviously there's a service out there that obviously help generate them, macros, all that type of stuff, make it all nice and tasty.
I have like high protein cookbooks and stuff like that for people and like handouts, but like...
The issue being with a lot of people is they have this idea that I just need ideas to cook. And I said, that's great because you are thinking about this on a Monday evening after you've just picked up the kids, gone to jits, and like, oh, what should I cook now? Right? You'll look at the recipe and you'll go look at the 10 ingredients and go, well, I haven't got that. Oh, I can't be bothered. It's going to get takeaway, right? You need to, again, put yourself in a difficult situation, right? A challenging situation, and say, right, I've got more time this Saturday evening to go and cook a meal where I've got loads more free time, and I'm going to try something completely new. I'm going to look at this recipe. Oh, I haven't got it. Oh, I'm going to pop to the shop quickly, go and do it, and then go and do it from there. Not try and cram it in on a Monday evening. And it comes back to this confidence thing about, and again, I'm very much aware, and I'm sure you are as well, in the sense of like, people's cooking skills have been going downhill drastically, really bad. And then when we've got the ability, obviously, with different sort of services like Uber Eats, Deliveroo, all this type of stuff, where it makes it even easier not to cook, right? There's this whole thing is technology making us lazy. Again, tin hat. It's the government giving the technology to make us more unhealthy, to then give us pills and all this type of stuff. Well, going into that discussion, but the idea being is that the recipes is not the problem, right? Is that you need more confidence in your cooking ability, and you need time to obviously practice these things, because if you want to cook this meal and put it into your meal prep, the picture looks fantastic.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
all love a good picture on Instagram or anything like that, right? But then to put it into practice day in, day out, day in, day out.
When
takes-
life is happening around you.
Exactly.
You know.
You're going to have to take some extra time to go above and beyond to then go and do it. It's exactly the same thing, and this is probably a frustration that I have quite honestly, is that people will look at their training program or will go, I'm obsessed with my training, I need to do this and I do this. How about you just, I don't know, maybe log your food a little bit? Oh, I haven't got time for that. But it's just like, if you had the same passion as what you had for your training, you'd probably see more results from the nutrition aspect, and then all of a sudden give that emphasis and energy towards it. And then from there, it's the same thing with the recipes. It's like, give the energy, give the passion. You're going to have to go a little bit above and beyond your arca to be able to do that. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in the same rut.
Yeah. Or my favourites people are like, I'd like to work with you, but I don't have any time for meal prep. And I'm just like, so do you think by working with me, I'm going to deliver your meals, or like what's happening here? Like how do you eat? Like, do you know? And obviously there's that bodybuilder idea that people think they're going to be eating out of Tupperware 6 meals a day. You know, that kind of old bodybuilder situation. And I'm like, no, I'm not asking you to eat out of Tupperware, but you're going to have to put some forethought into your nutrition if you want to improve your nutrition, and it's definitely going to involve cooking. Like, I kind of generally am quite straight with people. I'm like, can you just please act like an adult with your food? Like, you have to cook. Like, you have to cook. How else are you going to eat? You know?
There's only so much you can do, and I appreciate there's different environments with certain things. And I'm very much aware that, I don't know, some London clientele, for example, will, I don't know what it is about people living in London, you're about eating out 3-4 times a week is pretty much the standard type of thing. But you've got to be prepared also to do this. And if you're in a position to obviously go and hire a chef, yes, go do it. I'm not going to deny
I'd love to.
I'd love to be in that position. And it's likewise when it comes to food requirements, the few following days leading up obviously to weigh-in type of thing.
Yes.
It may seem a little bit bland and boring in places, but this is to manipulate your weight a little bit
Yes, a means
more,
to an end.
right?
You know,
And so don't get me wrong, when you see, I don't know, the UFC fighters making weight and they're like, oh, here's a little cake that we've made out of like peanuts, avocado and something like this.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know how to make that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how to make that. I've got nothing, unless you're a real good cook or something like this to do that. Unfortunately, we're going to probably have to singleize these food groups for you.
Like,
You have to eat them individually.
If you want me to come and do your UFC belt camp and you're going to pay me enough, I'll hire a chef and bring him.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will tell him, don't use this spice, don't you whatever, you know,
exactly.
Jordan has Chef Mario travels with him now to the UFC for the camp. Like, it's amazing. So the lads are like lapping it up.
To be honest,
and a happy fighter is a winning fighter, which is great. But these are the guys at the very top level. This is not the Bristol Open Jiu-Jitsu competition at the weekend. You know?
How dare you?
I think just to add on that, and Jordan pays, charges a premium for that service at the end of the day. It's not as if this is going to be like a Weight Watchers Academy of £20 a month type stuff at the end of the day. Fat Trev, shout out Fat Trev, we love him. Right guys, I'm conscious of the time, so we have got to dash into London, so we're just going to do some quick fire questions quickly for the pair of you. Okay, so first one's going to be, all right, you got your gold at Pans. What was the post-comp meal?
I can't remember, but probably sushi. I always go for sushi.
Sushi?
Yeah.
I think it was sushi only because her Amanda's fiance Sean sent me a video of her crying her eyes out eating sushi. Because we always slagging over the crybaby situation.
What have you got? Post-comp meal, what are you going for?
For me, sushi is one of my favourites as well.
Yeah.
Sushi, or I actually love a burger, like a big meaty quarter pounder situation.
Where from? That's a big question. What are we talking?
Oh, like I would like it to be from a gourmet restaurant, but if you were picking a fast food place, it would be like Five Guys.
Five Guys burger. Cool, love that. That's fine. Next question we've been asking, which came from a previous guest question, which we've now kept as a staple one, all right? Which is, which failure do you cherish the most?
Whoa, that is a beautiful question.
Don't worry, everyone goes quiet for a little bit.
Yeah.
Or some people have like literally instantly like.
Imagine I just start crying my eyes out. I've realised how many times I failed now. You've made me fail so much.
I should have been a lawyer the whole time.
Cut the camera.
You see, I would say my first career, but it wasn't a failure. It was a step away.
To be honest, like I couldn't pinpoint one. All of them are just like you learn so much. It's cliche to say that you learn from every failure.
Like
but
I've definitely had. But the problem is it's a mindset shift. So I've been very positive. So I don't look at things like failures. I always, so it's again another time. I was doing a podcast a few weeks ago and I was asked who my hero was, and I don't like to hero worship. So I was like, oh, I don't have a hero. What? Oh my god, just trying to phrase it in my mind.
When I talk about post-comp meals, I don't want to label it as a cheat meal because there's no such thing.
Yeah.
We will look forward to something.
I know,
afterwards,
but like it's the universal word everybody knows. Failures. Like I guess I'm grateful that my last long-term relationship failed, and then I met Austin.
That's one. That's fine.
And like he's all right, Got a few kids out of him. Great.
What's an unpopular jiu-jitsu opinion that you have?
Unpopular jiu-jitsu opinion. Pulling guards is gay.
I like that. That's exactly what he does. That's perfect.
I've got a bad ankle at the moment. Leave me be. Right, leave that alone. Cool.
What
That's
about
fine.
you,
yeah, I honestly don't know.
Can't follow that. That's pretty good.
That's interesting. Okay, and then I think we had one from Ricky Bellingham, which I'm trying to remember off the top of my head now because it's on my phone.
I can get it.
It was similar to our normal questions, so I was like, oh, we need to adjust this slightly.
I've managed to anger all of the people that pull guard, and
Which is all of our gym.
She's coming for you all. She told me about it. She's resting up. Sorry, it's just gassing about Josh and McQueen.
Yeah, it is just gassed about Josh. Ricky's question was
Go for
the
the
biggest
second
biggest regret. Sorry, that was my fucking awful mouth. Biggest regret in BJJ, or if there's no regrets, what's the biggest lesson you've taken from it so far?
biggest lesson is just the ego situation that, like, not. So, because when I started jiu-jitsu, I was athletic and fit and strong. So I was doing okay against other white belts that were not all of the above. And then you get someone that's way lighter than you, but just better, and they put you in your place. So it's the ego situation. Yeah.
That's exactly what Ricky said. Ricky said he came in from CrossFit, was like, been in the army, walking through white belts, got put with blue belt. He was like, oh no, oh no. It was like embarrassing. He said, like, it's just.
No, it hasn't changed my attitude. I still roll like that dickhead. That's just like, I'm strong. But still, it's like. But now I'm less offended when that doesn't work for me.
I think definitely cutting weight stupidly and just binge eating on 24 donuts after finishing.
I didn't know it was bad. That's what we always talking about.
People, Shane Curtis will say that eating donuts is a great thing to do. He has this thing where, as every training he does,
Majority of training sessions.
every single
You'll have a
training
donut.
session, he'll go out and get 2 Greg's donuts and eat them then and there.
Yeah, I still get I get messages from his coach Paul. And he's like, "Why are you making him eat donuts?" I'm not making him eat anything. Like, I'm not even I'm not delivering them to his door. Like, if he wants to eat them, and we can make it work. It's fine. It's
It's
no
just
problem.
the arrogance of thinking that because it worked once, it's going to work all the time, and you'll be able to
Keep
do
it up.
exactly.
And I think it's the intent behind the donuts. If you're feeling mentally stable and having a donut, have at it. If you're binging on a donut and it's an excess, it's based on having restricted for a long time, and it's a depletion, and it's your body begging you to give it more calories. That needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I just said that then. I'm going to get all this slate for calling you guys.
Yeah,
now.
guys.
Lads. There we go, lads.
Lads.
Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. And obviously, I had to get the opportunity because you're not in Northern Ireland. I was like, we're going to do this now, type thing. Have you got any questions for us at all? I know you asked me a couple, but have you got anything else?
What are your biggest regrets in
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu?
let's turn it back on you.
Oh, my biggest regret. Just in jiu-jitsu or?
You can do the two, do life and jiu-jitsu. Biggest failure first, and then jiu-jitsu regret.
My biggest failure.
Sorry.
Not growing up quick enough. So I did mostly my A-levels and degree at a later age in life, and still went through like 18, 19, kind of being a bit rebellious. I think where, again, my upbringing was not upper class. I would say it's like middle class, if that makes sense. So I went to private school, that type of thing, and basically just pushed back on everything. I just do what I want. Went to an all-boys school, went to sixth form, and I think my biggest regret was the amount of support that was around me, just not utilising it. Okay. It took me into my late 20s to realise that actually I had a lot of opportunity, and the grudge I held against these teachers and stuff like that, like, oh, you're not helping me, you're just trying to be a dick and all this type of stuff. I look at them and they just want to be nice and they're just doing their job and they're trying their best type thing.
Yeah.
So even though that motivates me to this day, they kind of still say like, fuck you, I'm going to prove you wrong type thing. I think if I utilise that much further now, I'd be not just half a decade into my nutrition career, I'd be a decade or a bit more.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So, yeah.
But just to play devil's advocate on that, the life experience you're bringing to your clients is very valuable. And if you haven't been through your own shit, you're that 20-year-old newly qualified nutritionist that's telling a mother of 3 to eat 7 small meals a day.
Yeah.
Freshly cooked, you know, like it's...
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily get the life experience of that
Yeah.
and try and understand things from a realistic perspective, which comes back to our PT comment that some people are like, I'm just going to treat everyone like a bodybuilder, you're a moron.
Yeah.
It's the case of you've got to read the person that you're dealing with and understand how to do
And
that.
you wouldn't be able to do that if you were 22.
No.
Well, maybe not. Some people are ahead of their time, but...
Depends on how well you deal with that imposter syndrome type thing.
Yes,
Because
yeah,
in the
yeah.
day, imposter syndrome, majority of the time comes from your own head, right? There's some people out there in the S&C nutrition world who have no qualifications at all and are still at the ahead of everything at the moment. There's a certain person I'll shout out of there. But yeah, it's one of these things that if they can do it, then why can't anyone else, to be fair? And so, go on you. Jamie.
Oh, shit. Fucking hell. Biggest regret in BJJ. I think for me, I got stuck in the mindset of I need to be at a certain level to compete. So I waited pretty much all the way to the end of my white belt. At the time, Pedro wasn't doing stripes, but I'd been a white belt coming to class like on and off for 2-3 years. I lost a job, moved away, came back kind of thing. And I think had I have competed more at the time, I'd be better as a blue belt now, because when I entered the competition, I was entered as white belt, Pez gave me a blue belt in December, had the competition in February before COVID, and I was like, oh no, I need to change my belt. So I went in as a fresh blue belt against someone who was a very competitive blue belt. I'd been on like submission underground and stuff like that, and I was like, oh no, I'm in danger.
Yeah.
And, I basically got, that's the first ever comp I lost. But I think, touching on the note of, a failure that you cherish, it really was losing that first comp. Because to me, I bigged it up, I was really worried about hitting weight, and I didn't think about my game, didn't think about what I was going to do. I knew I had a pretty decent bow and arrow choke, but the guy got me in jump guard, and I was like, oh shit, I've never been caught in jump guard before, what the fuck do I do?
Yeah.
I panicked, I'll just grab his lapel. That was clever, so I was like that, panicking, like, what do I do? You see like little dogs and they shake when they see food they like? I was like hyperventilating, but I just didn't know what to do. So yeah, I think, because obviously Ricky said this, and Mark and other people as well, I think if you want to compete, do it earlier. Go in at like 6 months of learning jiu-jitsu, go straight into a comp. I know it sounds dumb and it's scary and you panic and some people, have like anxiety attacks and things like that, but just do it. Because honestly, stepping onto a competition mat and hearing those people and having a coach shout at you and stuff is completely different from sparring in the gym. It's next level. So I think, that's my biggest regret, is just not competing enough in the lower belt. So
I'll just bounce off that for the controversial one. Is I have a really hard time with gyms who only promote the competitors that won medals, because you're completely denying the ones that actually took that courage to go into a competition. Even if they lost the first round, it doesn't matter. There's like 70% of the population who don't even dare to go into a competition. I just hate that. Like, you have a group of 10 people who go compete, only 2 are going to be posted on Instagram and celebrated. Like,
That's interesting.
Because 50% of competitors are going to lose their first match.
Yeah. But be part of that percentage.
Yeah.
Go and
Get involved.
100%.
Even if you lose, like, it's like Ricky said, oh no, you beat me in the Devon Opens 4 years ago, now I'm the black belt winning Masters. Who gives a fuck?
Exactly.
Nobody. And even if you won double gold, by Wednesday everyone will have forgotten. They'll know you won a medal of some sort.
Medals everywhere.
Just wearing
Or in the queue in Subway. Like, what's that? Don't worry.
That's the thing, we say that jiu-jitsu is predominantly a hobbyist sport for most people. and like, you
say
know,
that.
you'll go compete
with
on
the
the
feet of the
Saturday.
champion here.
But no, it's true though. Like you'll go compete on the Saturday. You'll finish your week job of doing your day job full time, and then you'll go and compete. You'll win double gold. And Monday, your mate at the water cooler's like, "Oh, how's it going, man? How's the weekend?" You're like, "Yeah, I won double gold." Oh, cool. And they fuck off. You're like,
Yeah, huge.
"Okay."
Or you got silver and you're getting that image being printed out, or you've been like smashed in, like, I don't know, something like this. You're like, yeah, it was a good weekend, you.
Or like you walk around with like a black eye, or you get like cauliflower hair. Everyone's like, "Oh, you fucking look at you. Like you think you're right." It's like, "Oh, no, I just
I'm a
like to
big
compete."
friendly
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
Right,
It comes to a good point that I have all the belts I won in kickboxing. You know, they give out a belt, and when I first started fighting, all I wanted was a belt, and then I was like, it'd be great to have 2 belts because I can have one on each shoulder, and then I have like 7 belts at home, and they're literally stuffed in behind where our swimming gear goes. But now, as I'm not competing, I really appreciate winning all them. I really appreciate all those experiences, and I wish at the time I was able to be more present in that success, where instead of just being like, what's next,
Yeah.
you know, and then even sometimes like I'd win a fight, and this is a thing we all do, I think, it'd be like, you know, that girl wasn't great, you know, wishing that, or trying to belittle your own success. But again, like I said to you about your default bronze, you can only fight who's in front of you, and if you win, great, you know.
Cool. Good. Right, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
was
Good to
brilliant.
see you.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you. Enjoy, obviously, emulator.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, obviously, I think we're going to have to come over to you at some point.
Yeah,
Right? I think
absolutely.
this
Oh,
conversation could
that's
have carried on for hours, I think. And if we
There's
weren't,
a
obviously.
few gyms we can go to. We can go visit Scramble Jungle in
Yes.
Dublin.
Yes.
Yeah,
you want to do
absolutely.
that, we'll
East
chat.
Coast with us, or you know, come
So
to
we can go
sunny.
Visit Lindsey Gym as well.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Done. But anyway,
We'll talk it. Cool.
thank you, guys.
Absolutely.